the live stream will cease prior to the meeting moving into the private. There may be a short delay. A recording of the meeting will be available on the Council's website within 24 hours of this meeting. Would members and officers please remember to switch microphones on when speaking and speak directly into the microphone, and switch microphones off when finished. Officers joining via Teams, please use the hands up icon on your screen for questions and comments. Please turn your cameras and microphone on when speaking and off when finished. Can everyone ensure, please, that your mobile phones are either switched off or placed on a silent mode? Just a reminder to any members in the gallery, please ensure that you remain quiet and orderly whilst you're observing this meeting. If there are any disturbances, then we may ask you to leave the meeting. I understand that we do have members who are not part of OSB that wanted to come in and have a say. You will be given an opportunity, but you will not be able to vote. Due to the number of people that may wish to speak on the Bury Park parking scheme, I am going to limit limit to one item that you can talk about. And then if we go around and your item is not covered, then we'll come back around to you and cover off anything that you haven't said. So basically what we're trying to do is make sure we've got no long speeches going on, and everyone is mentioning one point so we can get through to everyone, and then we'll come back around if anyone hasn't had their item covered off. Generally what tends to happen is you'll have the first few speakers that will talk about all the items that everybody else wanted to cover off, and then it's just a repetition. So we're just trying to get everyone in and to ensure that everyone's got a say. Again, please ensure there's no long speeches. I will cut you off after about 2 minutes and move on to the next person. Portfolio holders would want to present the reports, so members are welcome to actually question the portfolio holders as well as the officers. We now move over to the first agenda item, which is apologies. Do we have any apologies?
No, Chair.
Thank you. You have the minutes of the meeting on the 15th of June in front of you. Is everyone happy with the minutes? Councillor Stevens?
I think, a slight amendment, please, Chair. On page 8 of 303, top of the page, in terms of target setting, I don't recall saying that I would be happy just to know about the rationale behind the service targets to be scrutinised. I actually suggested that OSB should have a role in aspects of the target setting. And that was a point that I raised, not the way that it's been put there now. The rationale, if you recall, behind that, Chair, was I didn't think we could do our job properly unless we knew how the targets came about. Some targets said 50%, some 30, some 80, they were all over the shop for different areas. And so the commentary is saying that we would wish to have some rationale behind it. I didn't actually suggest that. I suggested that we had a bigger involvement in some aspects of the target setting.
Okay, thank you. One of the responses that I do have from the officers in terms of your question is that in terms of target setting, members would always be presented with opportunities to carry out their scrutiny roles and scrutinise all areas within the Council's corporate performance. It was suggested that future reporting should include commentary on the rationale behind each service target to be able to scrutinise robustly. It is further added that if you are not content with the response, then to send a question to myself and I'll chase up the relevant team or department. Microphone.
What I raised isn't included as part of that. I had suggested that we would have a greater role, because unless we understood why those targets, whether it was based on national, if it was local issues or other issues, unless we had a clear understanding of how those targets came about, we could not and cannot do our scrutiny job properly.
Chair,
I do recall that Steve actually did say that the scrutiny should have a role in setting the targets, not just in being informed of what they are and how they were set.
Okay, so you asked to amend the minutes, and do you want me to take it back again as an item to the officers? That OSB should be the one setting the
Yes,
targets.
I mean, I would like the minutes amended, and I would like, I'd like what I have suggested, because it was supported by others around the chamber, to find out how we're going to be included in what I have requested.
Okay, thank you. We'll take that back. Anything else on the minutes? No. Okay, that's moved forward. Chair's updates in terms of the corporate performance report, questions quarter 4, 25-26. Responses from the questions from the meeting on 15th June have been sent to all members of the board. Some responses are still pending from officers. Reporting officers should give a summary of report and move straight to questions from members. Do we have any?
They've been sent to the members.
Okay. Is there any officers that want? And we now move over to agenda item 4, which is disclosure of interests. Do we have any disclosure of interests? No. Thank you. Any urgent business?
No urgent business, Chair.
References from other committees?
There's none for this meeting, Chair.
Thank you. We now move over to agenda item 7, which is the Luton Nighttime Economy Task and Finish Group. Bassett, you're presenting that? Okay.
Thank you, Chair. Look, it gives me a little great privilege to present this report. I think we had cross-party support on the recommendations of the Nighttime Economy Task Force. As you all know, at the end of 2024, OSB set up a Nighttime Economy Task and Finish Group to investigate Luton's nighttime economy. And this was a cross-party group with co-opted members from the Nighttime Industries Association, University of Bedfordshire and Luton BID. There were several lines of inquiry explored as part of that report, including town centre safety, transportation, how we can make the Luton Town Centre a more attractive and viable place for both residents but also people from out of town, and to rejuvenate the nighttime economy. During this time, the group gathered evidence and the executive took away the final report and recommendations and worked through each in turn with officers on the detailed action plan, which is attached to this report. There were 15 key recommendations that emerged from that, and we've made progress since then. Later this year, the Council will also be bringing forward a new visitor economy plan. This will be Luton's first visitor economy plan, and we'll be focused on the next 5 years and positioning Luton to maximise the opportunities for increasing visitor numbers regionally. And it comes at an incredibly exciting time for our town, with Universal Studios, airport growth, the stage, Power Court, and the development of a local visitor economy partnership. A key focus of this report was, of course, the nighttime economy, with a new plan and initial action plan to be further developed in line with the wider ambitions. The nighttime economy work can't happen alone or in isolation. In particular, the challenges around safety in daytime, we know we have to address those, because unless we tackle the crime and the antisocial behaviour in the town centre, we won't be able to increase footfall or rejuvenate the nighttime economy. Some of the actions currently included in the action plan are already in progress. There's a number of key actions within the action plan that have already been delivered or started, which directly respond to the findings of the nighttime economy report. We're improving the use of data in the town centre, both during daytime and nighttime. We're working with Luton BID, who have met twice already, to bring them in to collaborate with us to rejuvenate our town centre. We've agreed and implemented a new events policy, and we're providing support to organisers and event spaces to make our town more viable for events. We've increased the number of events taking place into the evening, into the town centre, to mark 150 borough states. You might have seen Market Hill Live, the Stockwood Park event that's happening in September. We've also got proms, and it's brilliant to see people from outside of Luton attending these events as well. And importantly, we've also approved additional funding to extend our public health response and neighbourhood enforcement. I know, once again, that enforcement is incredibly important, which is why we're more than doubling the number of neighbourhood enforcement teams, as well as working with the police to tackle antisocial behaviour and crime. The executive has also approved significant investment into a new multi-agency implementation team. Now, that is not a new service. It's not. We're not trying to rejig old methods. It's a new way of working that targets the cohort of vulnerable 12 to 13 individuals in the town centre who've got complex needs, and trying to support them and provide support for them to ensure that we can also have a thriving town centre, but at the same time ensuring that our most vulnerable are looked after. And these programmes will also be strengthened by a place activation programme, enabling us to take a coordinated approach to tackling the issues in the town centre. And I'm happy to take any questions.
Okay, can I have all hands for questions? Councillor Aslam, Councillor Franks, Councillor Steve. Anybody else? No? Okay, Councillor Aslam.
Yeah, thank you very much for the report. And although I agree with the principles of what the Task and Finish group is trying to do, and you're quite right, we need to improve our nighttime economy is virtually non-existent. And you've highlighted some of the reasons why we don't have nighttime economy. But we need to establish currently what's working and what's not working. We are spending considerable amount of money on drug and alcohol services, on our homeless team, on PSPOs, as well as all host of agencies which are collaborating together to address the safety issue. And I know that you have been visible out there in Joy Street, so have I. I have visited all those shops, and the shopkeepers are up in arms because people go in, steal out, they go in, they aggressively bag, and there are people out there still, roaming around with bikes, quad bikes. Now, if our strategy hasn't worked so far in trying to get rid of some of that antisocial behavior, what would you do differently with this model? How much more money how do we have to throw at these services to improve some of the basics that should be improved? And secondly, my question is around, you've got the economy plan. Now, is that just confined to town centre? Does that include Hightown? Does that include Bury Park? What does it cover? And what is your target customer? If you could answer that for me before I come on to follow up, please.
I'll take it first, and then if the officers want to come in, is that all right? And then I can answer. On your point about what are we doing differently about we're throwing money at services, I accept that throwing money isn't a sign of radicalism, and nor does it always solve problems. I accept that, but just the reason why we're not doing tried and tested methods that we haven't done before. We've worked with the police. We had a meeting with the chief executive and the police last week, and before that as well, we've got a plan to come up with closer working between the police and the neighbourhood enforcement teams. You all know fully well that neighbourhood enforcement doesn't always have the necessary powers to confiscate alcohol, for example, or to tackle some of those crime and antisocial behaviour issues, which is why the police is incredibly important. In terms of successes that we've already had to date, since some of the measures we've already seen, we've got the ball rolling. 1,819 hours of visible patrols, 244 fixed penalty notices for antisocial behaviour and crime, 798 PSPO interactions. So we are making progress. Yes, there's more to do, and that's why we're doubling the number of net officers from 4 to 8, because I'm sure you'd accept that 4 people alone can't do everything. So we've increased the number of net officers. We're working with the police to bring about enforcement. So we're not simply throwing the money at the problem. The point about the MIT is that the public health team and people from drug and alcohol, because these are people with complex needs. They still need support when it comes to drug and alcohol services. They're very vulnerable. A lot of them have trauma. I accept that, simply it's not a case of we're just throwing money at the problem. It's trying to tackle the root causes. And in terms of your second question on does it just include the town centre and who's it for, I think we've made clear the nighttime economy is for everyone. It's not just young people. It's not just people who, not just Lutonians as well. We want to attract outside visitors. And I'm sure with all the development that we've got going on, whether it's town centre, the stage, the football club, all of these schemes are designed to benefit not just the town centre, but the wider town. The reason why I've focused on the town centre is because obviously under my portfolio, town centre regeneration falls, and that's where we're looking. Because as you accept, the town centre is kind of the crown jewel of any town, and that's why we're focused on rehabilitating its image and also tackling the underlying issues there.
No, thank you for your responses. However, my concern is that you do acknowledge that there are services which are operating, they're interacting with these individuals, but they still have not removed them from what they're doing. So clearly it's not working. And if you're saying that we're going to be paying more, we're going to be getting more people doing the same thing. Of course, it's not going to solve any problem. So you talk about addressing root cause issues. So those deeper issues, they will take decades. What I want to know, what people want to know, what's going to be done tomorrow or day after or the next year, and we bring people into the town, they feel safe, and they go about spending time with their family in the town centre. My second concern is that, yes, you will bring those people into the town by doing those events. But after the events, what happens? They will come and then leave again. Or you want them to come here regularly. So what will you do, for example, George Street? If Luton Town Football Club is going to build all these new shops and new restaurants and around the stage, that means you're taking everyone away from George Street, which is almost virtually, empty at the moment. So what will you do to make this area more lively?
So I completely reject the claim that, what we're doing isn't working. I think in terms of, yes, could the PSPO be enforced better? Yeah. But the fact that I get that we want these people moved on, but at the root cause of it, they've got complex public health needs, and that's what we're working on. Part of the MIP program that I don't know if you saw the papers of the multi-intervention target approach, is to bring people from drugs and alcohol, homelessness, neighbourhood working, to bring it together. We haven't seen that joined up approach before, and that's what's different. And sorry, your second point about the George Street, yes, we're also working with licensing and other organisations to try and make George Street more lively. It's included in one of the recommendations. I don't know, Sinead, if you want to add anything else.
I guess the other thing that's different as well is that this is extended hours. So lots of what you see now is 9 to 5, Monday to Friday. So the net team response will be Monday to Saturday and for longer hours. And I don't know if James wants to add anything. The same with the MIT. The idea is it will start Monday to Friday, 8 till 5, but it will mobilise quickly to do weekends and later in the evening. That's a big part of what will be different from what you see right now. That's one of the challenges we get all the time, is that it's only running during normal sort of 9 to 5. Running it much longer is what we need, particularly around the discussion tonight, which is the nighttime economy and people feeling safe. I'm going to bring in James and Kelly to expand on the MIT and the net response.
Yeah, thank you. So, as has already been touched upon, we're looking at increasing the hours from that early start. So it's not just that into the evening, it's that early start as well, from 7 o'clock until 10 o'clock, but then including additional hours onto that as well. We've been really key in terms of some of those key events about making sure that safety is a running theme through that. So we're making sure that our officers are visible, they're interacting, not from an enforcement perspective as much of anything, but an engagement with members of the public as well, which has had a really good impact. I think what's key to note as well is we've got a dedicated ASB case management officer that works behind the neighbourhood enforcement team. They look at the criminal behaviour orders, your civil injunctions and things like that. We've been able to obtain a large proportion of criminal behaviour orders, but once again, it still needs to go through the court process, so it still doesn't necessarily always identify the key driver. And that's where the MIT comes into effect and plays a real key role in terms of dealing with individuals on street that are going through complexities there and then at a time and trying to address those and remove them from the streets. We see a number of complex individuals, and this response will provide a different approach to them, and it's a new method of dealing with things. So as I say, Councillor Mahmood's already touched upon the increase of officers as well. So we've currently got 4 officers and a team leader within the town centre. We're actually looking at increasing that to 10 officers with the team leader as well. So the numbers will increase as well.
Thank you,
Franks.
No, last point.
You have one? Okay.
Yeah. Point. What I was expecting from this report was also is really understanding what your offer is. So you're trying to bring in people, but you don't even understand what your offer is. So, for example, Hightown is very unique. It's got something different to offer. So does Bury Park, which is quite vibrant, very safe to go through. You don't have the kind of problems that you have in town centre. Town centre is broken into 3 different bits, which is isolated. There needs to be a proper, coherent plan, which links to, you talk about, Universal Studios, you talk about your airport, you talk about all the growth, but what it doesn't include is what offer you have for these people to come and enjoying the town centre. So I think we need to do a little bit more on that. Thank you.
I think it's ludicrous to claim that we don't know what our offer is when we've just had fantastic events like Miles Smith, Stockwood Park. We're attracting younger people more than ever before. More people are coming in from out of town. I know music isn't the only event that we're holding in Luton Town Centre. The other offer is to rejuvenate our town centre so businesses do feel safe and do feel that they can, offer their products and sell here. And that's why we're tackling the crime and the antisocial behaviour that many people don't feel safe within our town centre. So we have to tackle the root causes first before we try and, we've got to start to walk before we run, and that's what we're trying to sort the foundations out first.
Can I just come in on the visitor economy plan? It's slightly delayed because we've started work with DCMS and Universal. So we want to make sure that their plan and action plan, we have that first before we deliver our plan. So they're aligned. What we didn't want to do is have our plan and then we'd have to amend it to kind of bring in all the Bedfordshire-wide plan, and hopefully this will get us some additional funding as well. So that will start work later in the year. But the idea is absolutely what you've said, Councillor Khan. It will include the whole town, the airport. How do we keep visitors here instead of just using our airport going in and out? How do we attract them into our town centre? But we have to get the basics right. So we have to have a core offer, which we don't all the time. So we need to attract better shops here. If we get the safety right, if we get the public health response right, and we improve our public realm, we've got the stage, we've got Power Court, people will come. But at present, we're working on that and we're on a journey, and I believe the visitor economy plan will start to strengthen that. We are seeing people come back, and events are definitely a way that's attracting people into our town centre. We're doing more of those. We're going to activate George Street. So we're now looking at how do we improve empty shops, how do we activate those shops, whether it be little pop-ups, whether we have a little youth centre there. We're looking at a number of things with businesses who own their shops on George Street. So the idea is that we don't turn our back on the town centre when the Hat District and the rest of that becomes active. We need to make sure that the whole of our town centre is fully activated. So George Street is prime right at this moment in time. That's where you're going to see all the work happening in the next 12 months. So that fits really well with the rest of the journey up to Power Court and the stage. So I believe when the visitor economy plan comes back in the autumn and winter time, you'll feel a bit more comfortable with what the next steps are around that wider visitor economy piece.
Before I move on to the next question from Councillor Franks, the layout of this meeting in terms of the portfolio holders presenting the agenda items has somewhat changed slightly without my knowledge. Can I request that we go back to officers answering the questions, and then if portfolio holders wish to add on anything on top of that, then you're welcome to. But because this is OSB, the idea is that it gives committee members the opportunity to scrutinise the reports, and therefore the reports are presented by officers, and therefore it is the officers that should actually answer the questions. But you're more than happy to open up the report, but allow the officers to actually answer the questions, please. Councillor Franks.
Yeah, thank you, Chair. I will stick to questions. I've got several. On page 19, there's a reference to a multi-agency implementation team. Has the team started work, please? And if so, what has it done?
Thank you, Councillor. It's due to go live on the 3rd of August, just starting with the initial phase, which is bringing the new team together. It's a co-located, multidisciplinary team that comes across from different organisations. And the plan is that they work together to deal with really complex case management in a way that they haven't done before. And it allows the initial part will allow that service to develop together, and within 3 weeks it will move to the extended working of 8 a.m. until 9 p.m. in the evening.
Thank you, that's quite encouraging. It's clearly going to take a great deal of cooperation between a lot of organisations to make this work. On the next page there's reference to a visitor strategy. I recall quite some time ago now, there was a programme agreed, whether it ever happened or not, I don't know, but it was agreed to offer training to people who can influence visitors. The first thing that comes to mind, of course, is taxi drivers picking people up at railway stations or the airport. But there are lots of others who could influence them. Is there any plan now to reintroduce this Welcome to Luton Ambassadors scheme?
So when we bring back the visitor economy plan and we go out to consultation and engagement, we will definitely be looking for more ambassadors, whether it be people in the town, people outside the town. It will be hopefully picking up the wider Bedfordshire piece and how we capitalise on Universal as well. But absolutely we need to bring in anyone who's able to talk up the town, talk about the town, keep people here. So yes, we'll have that as one of our recommendations, but we want it to... it will be a consultation, as I say, and an engagement process. It won't just be officers preparing something without going out for wider stakeholder engagement. And we are going to take the learnings as well from the DCMS Universal work as well.
Thank you. Top of page 28, there's reference to a 2025 trial scheme for £1 parking after 6. Two questions come from that, really. Is there any data or any evidence to suggest whether it worked or whether it didn't? What were the downsides? And also, have the operators of the shopping centre been approached to ask them to participate in either free or very low-cost late-night parking?
So in terms of that review, as you mentioned, was detailed. That's still being looked at, and certainly there was a trial that was undertaken. Sorry, this was before my time. So there was a trial that was undertaken around cheaper parking and reduced parking. That was stopped, and from my discussions, that's not been looked at again, but I'm happy to take that away and come back to this group.
In terms of the shopping centre, I believe that they already do some discounts in the evening on some of their car parks. We also had a conversation with them as well around extended hours. I think it shuts at 6 p.m. every night, whereas a Thursday used to be late night shopping. And they just haven't had the demand. So that's all part of that wider plan. If we can get more people in spending money in the town centre, they'll be willing to look at extending their opening hours for us as well, as part of that wider offer.
Okay, thank you for that. If there is further evidence which we've been promised, if that could be emailed to Eunice, then she will circulate it to members. Thank you for that.
Thank you. Councillor Steve.
Thank you, Chair. I've got a couple of very short questions and a number of comments to make when we get to that section. Can I just ask Sinead or Corrie, that in recommendation 1, this is a very important area of data that we need to capture. Are we planning on adding it to the quarterly corporate performance reports? Because I think it would be a very useful area in which so to put it in the future.
So the new OKRs do have some of that data around, or targets around, visitor numbers in the town centre, particularly footfall. However, when we create the visitor economy plan, we'll have our own separate measures that we can report back to members on a quarterly basis as well.
Okay, I wasn't quite sure, Sinead, in your earlier responses to Councillor Khan, when exactly will the nighttime economy action plan and the visitor economy plans be available for this board to have and to have sight of and to scrutinise?
So the action plan is already there in terms of attached in Appendix A. So under each of the recommendations, there's actions underneath it.
So there's not a different report. This is it. Is it? Or is it will be compiled into a formal report.
It will be. So we'll put it into one long implementation plan together, which members happy to oversee, we can bring it back to OSB on progress. But this is the action plan set out in terms of the actions against the recommendations. The visitor economy plan is a separate piece of work that will take a little longer. And like I say, we've been waiting for the DCMS universal work to get underway. But this could be an appendix of that visitor economy plan. So it doesn't, you know, we can align it together as one plan then. Is that okay?
That's okay. Can I request through you, Chair, that we do have the opportunity to review further progress at further OSBs. This is an important area for our town. And that's the end of my questions, but I have a number of comments.
Steve, did we not already have this previously where the nighttime economy would come back into OSB? Was it every quarter or every 6 months?
It would make sense to bring it back when we're doing the corporate.
Officers, I think we did cover this off, but just for a refresh, I think it was every 6 months where the nighttime economy would actually come back into OSB.
We should make sure that it is.
Yeah. Is that okay with you guys? Yeah, that's fine. Right, let's put it in for every 6 months. We get an update from.
And Councillor Stevens will get regular progress through the Town Centre Task Force, which is going to be a big part of their resilience fund monitoring.
No, that's fine. I will get them, but I'm thinking for the rest of the board as part of the scrutinising job.
Okay, thank you. We move over to Javid.
Thank you, Chair. Mine's a relatively quick question. So you said about increasing the neighbourhood enforcement from 5 o'clock to 10 o'clock at night. My question would be, what's going to be significantly different? Because at the moment, even between 8 in the morning to 5 o'clock, it doesn't work. Because I go a lot of time in the town all these days. I spend a lot of time in the town centre. I see all the antisocial behaviour. So what I want to understand here is just increasing and throwing more resource without understanding what's different, what's going to be different, what are the enhanced powers to actually make a tangible difference. Just increasing hours in it, because I see it during the day. I see them outside on the town hall, you know, when I'm showing people around. So I'd like to know have you got any additional enhanced powers to enforce what we got now before we increase any more hours?
So in terms of enhanced powers, there's no additional enhanced powers in relation to it. I think obviously we've just brought in from April, so really from April is when we've brought in our new growth bid of officers, which is enhanced out to 4. We have to account for staffing levels in terms of days off, annual leave and things like that. We know that when we have a number of resources within the town centre, it does have a visible impact. So when we look at the Safer Streets Summer Initiative and the Winter Plan of Action, that did see a reduction in ASB during that period. So the increase in officers up to 10 and those increased stretch of hours will give us a greater number of individuals on street in terms of a uniform presence. What we also see as well is where we deal with some of the individuals, and as Kelly's already mentioned in relation to the multi-agency intervention team, we tend to, there is an appetite sometimes that we can just seem to be moving people around. When you've only got a limited amount of resource, that becomes difficult. We're looking at how we can operate differently as well. So we know that we've got data in numerous hotspots, you know, from our CCTV teams, from our bids. So we're actually looking at that data and how we can holistically use that in a better approach to target some of these issues in a more meaningful way.
James, just supplementary to that is, will the police give you extra officers? Because obviously neighbourhood enforcement officers don't have powers of arrest, and what's the commitment level from the police?
So it wouldn't be right and remiss of me to comment on police resources. Obviously the police are, as part of the Town Centre Task Force, are committed to that approach, but it wouldn't be right for me to comment on police resources.
Bassett, you wanted to comment?
Yeah, we've got a commitment from the Commissioner in September to bring additional policing. Look, I completely recognise that members are saying that how do we know something's going to change? Well, you saw what happened in the Summer Safer Streets Partnership. It did change. Crime and social behaviour went down. It's in the numbers. You can put a political spin on it, but the numbers show that it improved. And what we're trying to do is, by doubling the number of net officers, 4 net officers is not enough to deal with the problems that we've got in the town centre. And we know these problems aren't 9 to 5. They're happening late into the evening, especially for the businesses that are open later in the town centre. It affects them. So I'm fully confident this will make a tangible difference, and I think we should be welcoming the additional impetus that we're putting into this, because we're trying to hit this hard and fast, and that's exactly what we're trying to do.
Is that it?
That's it.
Thank you. Councillor Mahmood?
I've got a couple of questions, but I've got a comment because I was a part of that night economy, member of that committee, so I want to make a comment on that later on. But two, really, one of the things that has all the recommendation of the members in the nighttime economy, are they all been implemented now? I'm asking the officers, not the portfolio.
Yeah, we've started progress on all the recommendations that were made from the nighttime economy report, and they're all in Appendix A on the main report. They're all there. But what we'll do now is we'll combine it into one overall implementation plan and report on 6 monthly progress. But if it's okay, I just wanted to quickly cover some of Councillor Hussein's point around what's different in terms of how we work as a system. So it's not just about the work the net will do, the work that the MIT will do, the work that my team do. It's about how we pull all the levers together. So this is a system-wide approach. It's not just what the council's doing. It's how we're working with partners. It's what we've done through the Town Centre Task Force, and we can show tangible progress against that. What we're doing now is putting in measures that we haven't been able to do before. So extending the hours, that's a big thing and a big ask that we've been trying to do for some time. So that will make a visible difference, and we're confident about that. I think the work that we do with the bid around how we support our businesses, how the businesses feed back to us about things they need. So one of them is around the shop frontage scheme, the work I've talked around activating the empty shops. That's another big thing. If we can do more events so we can attract people back into our town centre. As I say, it's not just what we do as the council, but what we're doing through the town centre delivery plan and the work with all our system partners that play a role in our town centre. So not just the council, just the whole partnership has to play a role in this. If everyone doesn't get involved, we won't be able to make a difference to our town centre. So partnership working is key to this.
Yeah, go ahead.
Can I also ask you, in terms of one of the recommendations was in the licensing team and how much cooperation they are given in terms of where the new businesses are coming in, or they are asking for an extended hours. We had those of us that sit on the licensing committee, our experience has been that if we want a vibrant town centre, we need to be flexible. We know we got a PSPO in the town centre stress areas, but we need to be flexible if we want to have a night, because we've done the walkabouts with Angela Fraser, myself, and Councillor Stevens, other members of the committee, including all of our opposition colleagues. There was only about 2 or 3 of us that did that late night. And we also visited Bury Park, which was very vibrant indeed. We wanted the town centre to be the same. So are we doing more to be able to train our licensing officer to be able to encourage the businesses to be opening later as well as coming into the town centre?
One of the strands of this new resilience fund is to have a dedicated officer that's looking at that licensing piece of work. So I believe, yes, the work through keeping Luton safe and the town centre is also picking up that work. The licensing team have always been pretty proactive in how to support us with getting our businesses to open later. I found them very helpful in terms of doing the events in the town centre, in a PSPO area where you wouldn't normally have alcohol. We've worked with them to have a safe space where we can have alcohol, where we can have extended hours. So they're completely open to supporting it. They want to see a vibrant town centre as well. So I think there's more we can do there, but the licensing team have been great in terms of working with us to extend those hours and to improve the offer in our town centre in a safe and enjoyable way.
The reason I'm saying that, Chair, because I think Councillor Stephen and myself were visited Leeds. We would like our licensing people sometime to go and spend an evening there and talk to the license officers from there, how Leeds is so vibrant and why Luton can't be like that in the evening, because at the moment it's a ghost town.
Okay, thank you. We now move over to comments. Does anyone have any comments? Councillor Stevens, anybody else? Councillor Abbas, Councillor Aslam. We'll start with Councillor Stevens.
Yeah, my first comment, if I may, actually coming back to the licensing side, I've been very disappointed on 2 occasions recently where I've been trying to help people that are trying to get licenses. One, it was around the Newtown Festival, for example, where it all went crashingly wrong, and it was only through the intervention of Mark Fowler that it was able to go ahead. That was the first thing. And then secondly, of a recent late night operative that wanted to offer hot food and hot drink at night. Again, there wasn't enough advice given in the beginning, and the poor businesses were left to struggle. So until we get the licensing team, they may think they're doing a good job, but that's not necessarily what the businesses think. And I think that there needs to be a reflection on this, because if we want to succeed in building up the nighttime economy, we need to have a better licensing policy and an easier licensing policy for the businesses to understand. I know that there's been some improvement since I think the Task and Finish group did its walkabouts and put forward the recommendations. But businesses were saying that the current system was full of duplications, it was full of red tape. I don't know whether that has now improved. If it hasn't, we need to make sure that we do it ASAP. That's the first thing. Second thing, I'd like to come back to the issue of safety in the town centre. I do not think that there is proper coordination, James, between your team and the police. I've seen even leaving here, the town hall at night, I've seen that rough sleepers, Polish drinkers, all around the town centre, and yet I've seen 3 police cars coming through. Then they just drove through, totally ignoring what was going on. So I think that our enforcement team and the police need to get their act together to decide who's doing what and to make sure that there is better coordination, because at the moment it's not working. And until we get safety to perceive, to be seen, and not just as an abstract aim that we're going for, we are not going to get the regular people coming back into town. Yes, we will do it, Sinead, for particular events, but it's not going to be on a permanent basis unless we can deal. And okay, it will be great when we get this multi-agency coordination grouping together and it's fully working, but we need to get this safety aspect. I don't want to be walking out of the town centre this evening or next time and seeing that police cars just driving along, totally ignoring, and there are no enforcement teams around moving the people on. And that is a clear thing, and it's a clear message from residents in my ward who will not come into the town centre at night still, or won't come into the town centre at all at the moment. That's my second point. My third point is with regard to recommendation 6. I think we were quite clear, the Task and Finish were very clear about what we wanted from these recommendations. What do other authorities do to try to encourage better recycling, better training for the businesses onto being environmentally friendly? That's something, perhaps we need to look at, see what other authorities are doing, see if we can learn some lessons. My next point is, before we lose any more of our pubs, I know the Brewery Tap has recently opened again. It doesn't seem to be having a lot of business at the moment. I think we need to be encouraging, incentivising, not just the Castle, not just the Bear Club, and the Red Line, but incentivising the other pubs to take part before we lose them. Because, you know, we've lost an awful lot and the thriving town centre that we had with, you know, with great pubs and great music pubs, in fact, that seems to be disappearing. So I would like Corey and Sinead, your team, to see what we can do more to incentivise the other pubs around the town. Wheelwright Arms, for example, you know, so the pubs that are around the town centre, around the Hat District, what more can we do to encourage them to take part in activities? Because before we lose those, because we don't want to lose any more of the pubs, they're already facing enough problems. You know, and there's some small advantages coming back on business, you know, on business rates. It's not enough. It's not enough to actually keep the business going, and they need to have footfall. My next point is, and here I'm really, really disappointed in the recommendation on recommendation 8. The nighttime economy task and finish group were very clear that they wanted to see incentives given. I had discussions with Dev, you know, and he said, "Oh, it's something we can look at." And coming back, just saying, "Look, we'll possibly look at matching funding." That's a nonsense. We had specifically asked them to look at the possibility of business rate holidays, or to some grants and discounts. That's not mentioned here at all. So how are we going to encourage new business to come into the town or other business to expand? That we need to be giving more support, and that needs to be a priority, and not just say, "Oh, we might consider matching funding." That's a nonsense. That does not go any way towards what the task and finish we're hoping to bring about. My next point is regarding recommendation 10. The app should be an absolute priority, and when we made the visits to Leeds, when we saw what they were doing with regard to safety, they were miles ahead of where we were. I know we're starting. The SOS bus is back, which is great. It would be great if it was there every weekend, not just a specific number of weekends, but the app is crucial. We shouldn't be waiting to the end of the year. We've had plenty of time to get working on this up until now. There are ready-made apps that we can use. We want to see some immediate progress on this, not waiting towards the end of the year. And then my recommendation item 11, well, why don't we show the rest of the businesses what they should be doing? How about having some uplighting on the town hall when we're trying to encourage other businesses to actually do something about the lighting? If we're not doing it ourselves, why should anybody else want to do it? We need to lead by example. And then finally, I think personally that we should be looking at full pedestrianisation of Wellington Street, not just expanding the pathway on one side. If we really want to develop a European street culture, a European cafe culture, I think we need to look at the possibilities. We might have to move the taxi around the corner. Maybe we need to stop that being an entry into the town. There are other ways of getting into the town. And I think, it's great for Chapel Street to do half of it, but I think Wellington Street actually would merit by going for full pedestrianisation. And I hope that we're going to look into that seriously. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. Councillor Abbas.
Thank you, Chair. I was going to say, looking at this plan and what we've done, it is a positive move. Let's look on the positive side. We are doing stuff that some of our residents want, and I'm pleased to hear that we're increasing our neighbourhood enforcement teams and doubling the size and extending their hours, because some of our residents, particularly some of mine, are, again, fearful of coming into town because of what's around there, and if they can see visible patrolling or something like that, that will bring back confidence. So there's quite a lot in there that I think is a good start. I take Councillor Stevens' points, there is more we can do. I like the idea of measuring our footfall. We need data, we need to measure that, whether we can even measure expenditure, whether we can measure how much is actually being spent. Is the Luton pound being spent in Luton? That would be really good. And then obviously I like the idea of business rates, and we should be looking at that, and I think that needs to be something that we should be looking at and offering something. The thing that was missing for me from here was, if we have something like a business rates cut or a grant or whatever we come up with, what are we doing to go out and actually attract businesses to come into Luton? I didn't see anything in this plan about that. And I wonder whether, Sinead, when you're doing your visitors economy plan, whether that could be something built into that. Because we'd have to go out and tell people about Luton. I know Luton sometimes doesn't get a good rep, but it is a thriving town. There's a lot going for it. And we need to go out there and tell people, come to Luton. It's a young population. The population is increasing. It's got one of the fastest increasing populations going. That's good for any town, so it is thriving. And we are, as a council, investing 5 billion into our town centre over the next 5 years. And we should be going out and telling people that and be proactive about it to get them to come in. But overall, I think it's a very positive plan. It's a good move, and I think if we get this done, the residents will see a difference, and what they want to see is a tangible difference. And I think the patrolling and getting businesses in and doing the events, getting people in, will start to change the sort of culture and the myth that the town is not safe.
Councillor Aslam.
Yeah, just building on from what Councillor Stephen, Councillor Hussain and Abbas have said. The nighttime economy will only grow if you allow the business to stay open and open late. I followed 2 applications which were rejected because they wanted to open beyond 11 o'clock. If the licensing team is not aligned with your ambition, then the businesses cannot stay open, till what the expectation of visitors or local people coming out and staying, till 12 o'clock, 1 o'clock. The second part is, why would another business chain would come to Luton? That's a question everyone will ask. And one answer to that is that we don't have enough disposable income in our pockets. That is a reality. When businesses do feasibility studies, that's the first thing they look at, whether they will get a return of investment or not. Which means we need to then bring in quality accommodation so people with money come in. We need to generate more jobs where people can earn more money, and that's the only way Luton Pound will stay in Luton. So they earn first, then they should be allowed to spend. And that's where, when I was talking about the quality offer, we need to get this right. We've had these strategies before. We had £2 billion of investment come in before. Another 5 billion won't make any difference if we don't get it right. What we need to be is very crystal clear what we are offering to our local as well as the people from outside. And that's why I will be very keen to look at your strategy and really understand how it interlinks with airport, with the Universal Studios, as well as other economic hubs, including Bury Park. That also needs to be part of the master plan, because that is a very, very unique offer that not many places within the region have, including Hightown. We were talking about pubs. There are pubs which are there. We need to support them to stay open and stay open for longer. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Can I, on top of the recommendations, can I move a recommendation that we receive this report back every 6 months or twice a year? Can I have a seconder, please? Second, Councillor Stevens, thank you. Is everyone happy with the recommendation? Yeah. Okay. So the recommendations are to note the meeting and to have this item back every 6 months.
I was just going to add, would it be helpful if we bring to the next meeting an update on the town centre delivery plan? Because lots of what Councillor Abbas and Councillor Khan have covered picks up our wider inward investment plan, all the work we're doing around the regeneration, how we're attracting businesses to Luton. But we need to get this operational element right so we can start bringing businesses in to show them around the town. And we have recently had an investor visit Luton, and we're following it up, and that does include town centre, and they're very interested. So people are coming and people are looking, but we need to do the other work as well to attract more business here to Luton.
Okay, that's fine. I think we're quite happy with that. into the next the next agenda item for the nighttime appointment. Okay, thank you. That concludes agenda item 7. We now move over to agenda item 8, which is the Bury Park Traffic Improvement Safety Plan on pages 29. Who is presenting, please? Councillor Javeria.
Thank you, Chair. So the way I propose to deal with this, as instructed by you earlier, is I will do the introduction with Councillor Tamina Salim, who's the leader of Luton Borough Council, and then obviously we'll open it up to questions and comments from colleagues here within OSB. So that's as per your instructions. Just by way of introduction, just to emphasise for the point of record here, that I inherited, or I was appointed the portfolio holder for public realm and sustainable transport in April to May 2026 of this year. This plan, the proposals for the traffic improvement in Bury Park was something that was mooted and obviously been in discussion since last year, and it was advocated by my predecessor very encouragingly, I should say, and also passionately, and he was one of the architects as well of this, so I think I'd just like to set that on the record. Now, that said, I recognise, as we all do, that Bury Park is a very key commercial, residential and community hub that has high volumes of thorough traffic and public transport. Now, concerns relating to congestion, road safety and inappropriate parking behaviour have been raised by the community stakeholders for many, many years. I mean, that being said, it was eloquently put by Councillor Khan in the previous report that, Bury Park is one of our thriving hubs, and it is a crown jewel, and it's our responsibility for all of us, irrespective of which political spectrum that we're at, that we support and ensure that this crown jewel thrives. And it's important that we put in measures to support that, and that's what we are attempting to do with the proposals that are here before you today. Now, for a prolonged period of time, as I've said, the Council has received numerous complaints regarding congestion and safety in Bury Park, particularly from residents that live in the area. Now, these complaints consist of a number of things: obstruction of footpaths due to illegal parking and unloading of vehicles, particularly by businesses, difficulties around safety for vulnerable people crossing the road, particularly due to illegally parked vehicles and junctures. I mean, that's something that we can see day in, day out. Erratic and careless driving, and difficulty for emergency vehicles particularly to be able to access roads when there's lives at risk here, and that's really, really important. So everything that's within the proposals this evening are bearing that background in mind. And with that, I'd like to hand it over to Councillor Tamina Salim to talk through the initial proposals that were put before the town last year, together with the consultation process, extensive I should say, that took place, and what the revised proposals are before you today. Councillor Salim.
Thank you, Javeria. Following on from Javeria's points, this was about safety and congestion. So in response, the following proposals were drafted and...
Sorry, Chair, why is that allowed? The portfolio holder, so why are we having somebody else now, another officer, another councillor, stepping in to make a further presentation?
That's fine. As the leader of the council, I will allow Councillor Tamina to finish.
Thank you so much. Thank you. I have Councillor Stevens, I have overarching responsibility for all the portfolios.
No, that's fine. I have allowed it, so let's continue, please. Thank you.
So, as I was saying, in response, the following proposals were drafted to address the issues that have been outlined around safety and congestion. The first suggestion was a trial red route, a one-way system along Kenilworth Road, footway parking restrictions on Leagrave Road, footway parking restrictions around formal crossing points, more parking signage, and important to note, no proposal to remove any of the parking bays was made, just better enforcement on existing illegal parking, but provision of additional disabled and loading bays was made. A 6-week consultation was undertaken between September and November 2025, where these proposals went an intensive discussion, and there were targeted sessions with key stakeholders, face-to-face events with the community, and 4,000 leaflets were distributed in and around the local area, and there was press engagement. So this engagement and consultation provided insightful and constructive ideas and suggestions which were all considered by the project team. Now, following that consultation and the consideration of the feedback, the following amended measures were then recommended, which include ideas and suggestions provided that improve traffic flow and pedestrian safety. So the first one was to improve safety for pedestrians by removing parked cars around formal crossing points. Secondly, the introduction of footway parking restrictions to stop cars that are illegally parking on footpaths, keeping them free for pedestrians and improving accessibility. Thirdly, to introduce a trial red route for 18 months under an experimental traffic regulation order, the ETRO, including introducing a 3-minute grace period which allows a driver to pick up and drop off on the red route trial without receiving a fine. Fourthly, increasing a car parking availability in the area, including making 120 car parking spaces available at Luton Town Football Club, which is approximately a 5-minute walk from the Dunstable Road shopping area, and where visitors can use these additional spaces every day of the year except on match days and the day before a match. Fifthly, to extend loading bay hours from 7 p.m. to 7 a.m. from 7 p.m. to 10 a.m. to give businesses more time to load and unload, and increasing loading bay maximum stays from half an hour to 45 minutes to support additional loading time for businesses. And then number 7, increasing disabled parking bays, maximum stay from 60 minutes to 90 minutes, and finally, not proceeding with a one-way system along Kenilworth Road. So those were the amendments made after the consultation. So experimental orders allow for this to happen within a week of being submitted, and as the consultation period is part of the trial, that is the case. However, in order to implement a red route, it would require road closures and permits which entail statutory consultation and press release periods, which means that implementation can only start in October or November, subject to a decision from the Executive on the 3rd of August. On that point, I'd like to hand back to Javaria to conclude this presentation.
Thank you very much, Councillor Salim, for that. I just want to reiterate here again that we recognise and that Bury Park is a key commercial hub in the town. By improving traffic flow, road safety measures, we believe that these will improve access for many people and more residents to visit the area, which will support many of the businesses operating in Bury Park. And a key point I'd like to also make is in relation to the air quality within Bury Park as well. As you know, that the proposals also contribute towards tackling the climate change emergency by contributing to better quality in Luton as a whole, air quality that is. Air quality monitoring in and around Bury Park has increased significantly in recent years. DEFRA include on-street parking strategies among almost 100 possible air quality interventions listed on the Air Quality Hub website and state that, and I quote, improving the management of on-road parking in local authority areas, can help reduce congestion and emissions. Vehicles parked on the highway can create obstacles and reduce road safety, space, increasing journey times and increasing the likelihood of accidents. One delivery taking place on the main road during peak hours can cause long traffic queues and create a danger point for cyclists and pedestrians. Large numbers of vehicles parking along roadsides can also slow down traffic and make cycling difficulty. And the AQ Hub predicts that such an intervention would have beneficial effects of NO2, PM10, PM2.5 and CO2 emissions. So with a significant baseline already established, following the implementation of any changes, their impacts can readily be assessed. So air quality is a significant factor in relation to the proposed scheme that is here before members of OSB today. And like I said, I just want to reiterate again that we are, during the trial period, going to ensure that we continue to work with all stakeholders within Bury Park, particularly engaging with the local businesses. We will also review existing parking restrictions in the area to ensure the right balance is struck of resident-only and visitor pay and display parking. We'll also undertake further traffic surveys to identify if bus stop design layout is contributing towards congestion. We're also going to identify quick wins along the scheme area that will align with Luton Town Centre.
You're going to have to wrap up because it's taking way too long.
Removing old and disused signage, bollards and clutter, providing more seating and introducing greening where possible in vacant tree pits. Sorry. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Point of order. Chair, you earlier announced that the portfolio holders would be just introducing, but all we heard is 3 people prepared with long list of scripts, well, 2 people. So it's going against your guidance, and I hope that you restrict or implement the guidance that you put in place. It should be the officers who should be presenting the report, and that was an introduction. That was our 3-page report we heard.
If I may, if you don't mind, Chair, that was actually an introduction. It wasn't the actual report.
Councillor, you speak through the chair. If I allow you to speak, then you speak. Now, that is fine. It was a pre-extraordinary situation. Obviously, we've had the leader of the council, so I have allowed this on this occasion. However, we do need to wrap these reports up fairly quickly. It is an agenda item which a lot of people do want to speak on, and if we're going to spend 15 minutes, 20 minutes just on the introductions, then it just defies the whole point of scrutiny. Can we now move over to
I've got a point of order.
Questions? Jav. Jav, as you're not a voting member, you would not be able to raise a point of order. No, that's fine. Right, can we now try and get this into a bit more efficient footing? Can we have questions first, please? Bear with me as I write your name down. Lee, Aslam, Abbas. Sorry, 1 second. Let me just work my way around the room. Jill. Okay. Hang on. Steve. I can, but you're not voting members. I can, but you're not voting members. So I will bring you in, but it will have to be at last. Is there anyone on this side? Okay. Rob. Councillor Shaw, Javed. Bassett. You have questions as well?
Because I'm not a member of OSB and I'm not a voting member, am I allowed to ask a question?
You can ask a question, yes. Right, okay. Just questions, please, no speeches. Lee, you first.
Thanks, Chair. Thanks for your lengthy report. Councillor Javeri, you mentioned that you'd worked closely with stakeholders throughout the process. I noticed that there's no formal time points during the trial before the 6-month time point to review whether there are any really negative impacts on local businesses. So could I suggest that maybe there's a 1 month or 3 month data check so that businesses that are struggling as a result have an opportunity? Could you clarify that?
Chair, can I answer? Is that right?
Questions are to officers. After the officers, the portfolio holder can respond back. Sorry, was your question directly to the portfolio holder?
Well, it was based on what Councillor Hussain said. But
that's fine. If it's directly to the portfolio holder,
that's fine. To answer if needs be, yeah.
If it's directly to the portfolio holder, then you can answer. Apologies.
Very good question, actually. And yeah, the idea was for the consultation to be reviewed at 6 and 9 monthly basis. But if you believe it's a good suggestion to do it on a monthly basis, we can most certainly take that away.
Thank you. Can I have another question? So again, this would be for, I guess, for the officers. So, has an independent economic impact assessment been undertaken covering footfall, turnover, vacancy risk, and business receipts, and the impact that it might have on viability of small independent traders in the area?
Hello. So Kieran Franzen from Highway. So as part of our monitoring plan that's detailed in the executive report, and just going back, it sort of touches on the review. So it's an experimental traffic regulation order. So we have a requirement to review it at interval points. So we will be reviewing it at 3, 6 and 12 months. As part of that, we will be conducting surveys assessing the impact it's going to have. and we will be engaging with the community. And throughout the whole 18 months, people can contact the project team at any point to raise any questions, because as part of the experimental traffic regulation order, that 18 months is considered the consultation period. So that whole 18 months is monitored throughout the whole time. But we will do intervals where we engage with the community directly to understand the impact it's having on different areas of the community. And in terms of reviewing the impact on footfall, that is something we will be doing. We have done pre-surveys. We will be doing after surveys. And we're also exploring looking at sort of MasterCard spending and spending in the area to sort of gauge the real impact it's having on businesses. That's part of your question. Thank you.
Just to refer back, I think your previous question, the officers wanted to come in. Do you guys, in your response, Gerard, do you want to reiterate any answer that you wanted to give in the previous question? And then obviously just cover off the current question as well.
I think Kieran just covered that point in terms it will be 3, 6 and 12 months, and then the final at 18 months. And just on the point around economic impact, that's the whole purpose of the trial, so that we can look at that in terms of with the engagement of businesses, but also as part of the project as well, wasn't just looking at Bury Park. We also engaged with the Department for Transport to look at other places up and down the country to assess whether or not there was any positive or economic impacts or negative economic impacts on local businesses. And actually there was no definitive research either way, although anecdotally we know from a scheme that was put in place in Medway and a scheme that was put in place in Brighton that actually implementing the trial route in the business areas increased their footfall, but that's something we will continue to monitor, as Kieran says, the whole way through the process. And because it's a trial, it also allows us to make a course correction in consultation with businesses and the local community at any point.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Aslam.
Thank you very much, and thank you for presenting the report. We had a double act, and I was quite pleased to see the leader here, and because you've been talking about Bury Park and how important it is, I thought you were going to announce some special financial package for the infrastructure improvement, but obviously really disappointed that it wasn't the case. However, it's a big report, and there's lots in there, and a lot of it could be taken out of context. So you talked about safety, and you talked about traffic flow. First, and there's a few questions. This is to drill the information and get to the point, and I will have my comments after. So I travel through Bury Park every day, so I know where the choke points are, I know what the safety risks are, and I would like to understand from you how many accidents were reported. You talked about safety. How many accidents have been reported in the past year or two, number one? And secondly, if you have driven, when did you drive through Bury Park last time? What are the choke points which stop the traffic flow? If you could explain that to me, please.
Kieran's just looking for the traffic data, but in terms of that second point of going through Bury Park, like many people in the room, I use it regularly, but also as a cyclist and a pedestrian, more so than someone who's driving. And I've been in Bury Park the last 4 days, and if you're there early in the morning, the traffic flows quite well, actually. But from mid-morning onwards, there is congestion the whole way through Bury Park, and significant pedestrian safety risks. And I've experienced it myself. I mean, at one point, and I accept that this is anecdotal, putting myself between a...
My question is, how many accidents have been reported, please, specifically?
So that was the first point, so we're just looking for the accident data.
You don't have the data?
Not the accident data, so we certainly can bring that back. But on the second point, in terms of the number of times of going through Bury Park, a lot, and there is significant congestion, and we've all seen first-hand experience of some of the significant safety risks.
So you still didn't answer my question about choke points. What are the choke points which stop the traffic flow? So just to help you, 2 lanes are going across, right? One this way and one that way, yeah? Yes, we do accept there's this parking and there's inappropriate parking. That does not still affect the flow of the traffic because they're parked. Now there's 2 separate issues, right? One is safety, one is traffic flow. What are the choke points which stop the traffic flow? Please answer that question.
I can come in on both in terms of the safety data, but in terms of the points that affect traffic flow, that's a mixture of a lot of things, and quite often it's a mixture of things combined. So you know Berry Park very well. You see all the parking that goes on down there. You see the unloading practices. You can see the situation. There's bus stops in Berry Park. You can see all of it combined results in the blocking back that you get in Berry Park, and there's a lot of different things going on down there. In terms of accidents, I can touch upon that. The reality is, when we did our survey to the public, over half the people that responded said they experienced safety issues in Berry Park. Over half the people that responded said that there were safety concerns in Berry Park. That's something we can't ignore. We know these safety issues have been long-standing. They've been brought to us many, many times. You know Berry Park well. You know what it's like down there trying to cross the road, manoeuvre around the area. It's a challenge, and there's lots of complaints. So there's one side in terms of the complaints we receive from people, and we know that's long-standing. I don't think anybody's disputing that. We've also got the survey response that also substantiate that. In terms of the actual accident data, I've got accident data in front of me now, and collisions. And just bearing in mind, this accident data is collisions that are reported to the police. So slight collisions, small collisions, things that are very minor that aren't reported won't be on here. But between the 17th of Jan 2023 and the 25th of June 2025, I can confirm that number of riders and drivers that were involved in a collision with slight or severe injuries totaled 34. Total passengers, 8 were reported as being impacted.
Just one moment. So these are cars colliding with one another, not running pedestrians over, right? Just clarify.
Correct. So there is the accident data that will go into the detail around this. This is just very high level, but overall, in that space between the 17th of Jan 23 and the 25th of June 25, there was 56. But just bearing in mind, that is reportable incidents that's reported to the police. There's lots, many more. You can, times that by a lot to realise what
one more question for me.
Sorry, before Councillor Aslam, just for clarification, the accident data would be on Dunstable Road. Are we including the whole of Dunstable Road or just the area in question?
I can come back to that in a sec, so I don't want to misinform you. I believe it's the whole Berry Park area, Dunstable Road to Birchlink and Leagrave Road. But I don't want to misinform you, so I'm just going to
That's fine. I'm just very obviously Dunstable Road is quite a long road, so if we're...
Oh no, it's just the Berry Park, so it's from Birchlink, Leagrave Road, and it's just that area. It's not the whole of Dunstable Road.
That's fine. Thank you. Please
So
go.
so it was mentioned because if inappropriate parking, people are unable to cross the roads, right? Okay. So again, we need to be clear. Is it corner parking or is it people parking in the middle of the roads because there's crossing everywhere? And so if you admit the safety is an issue, so if you are going to put two red lines on either side, so people are not going to park there, where is that problem going to be shifted, and is the safety not going to be an issue upstream?
I'd just like to clarify for everyone that we are not putting in further restrictions. These are already existing double yellow lines. So the activity of where they are currently parking illegally is illegal currently. So all we're trying to do is enforce on the current illegal practices better by camera enforcement, and the red route allows us to do that. Now, I appreciate you said, where's this going to go? And obviously, there is going to be a displacement. There is going to be, vehicles are going to have to try and find somewhere else. We have heard from the residents regarding their concerns about the impact on residential roads, and that's why one of our proposals is when we implement the trial red route, subject to the approval, if we implement that, we will review the control parking zones and the impact it has on residential areas, and we'll do a review of that at that time. But also, just to mention, we have recently also agreed to make 120 spaces in Hazelbury Crescent also available to support additional parking, and that agreement has been put in place. And we're also going to be improving signage within the Berry Park area to existing car parks so that people that visit the area know where to find parking.
I'll come in afterwards with my comments, but my last 2 points are is that instead of doing some of that work afterwards in piecemeal, you should be doing an impact assessment, assessing both safety as well as vibrancy of Bury Park. 2 yellow lines are very different to 2 red lines, and they have 2 different set of impacts, okay? So that should be measured first. You should know how many visitors come in, how many parking spaces you need, and by putting those 2 red lines in, what impact that will have on businesses. We expect that to... Hang on a minute. Let me finish, please. So I would expect to see that first before we make an informed decision. Thank you very much.
Chair, are we into comments or not? Because it seems to me that we're getting more comments than we are questions.
No, I thought that was a question. Is that a question?
Mm-hmm. As a question, when we get in the impact assessment, it should be first.
Kieran, I can respond to it. It's a vague question, but what I think I understand from the question you might be asking is, or the challenge I suppose you're putting forward, is why are we... I suppose it's a question, why are we not looking at reviewing the parking displacement before we put in the trial red route? And the whole purpose of this being an experimental is because we need to understand this impact of the red route going in. We don't know exactly how far it's going to go in terms of displaced parking. So we want to, that's the whole reason of it being a trial, is that we can monitor that impact and react to that and make sure we're covering it properly. So we have obviously done some proactive measures in terms of putting in, having this agreement for 120 additional car parking spaces. We are going to sign available car parks. So there are some proactive measures we're doing. However, because we want to gauge the impact it's going to have, there are some reactive measures we're going to do to try and improve it. And that's part of the TRO process. And that's something, that's the gift the experimental order will allow us to do.
Okay, thank you. We move on. Councillor Abbas.
Thank you, Chair. I'll save my comments for later, but I'll quickly answer questions. Kieran and Gerard, thank you for the paper, but what I couldn't get from the paper was a sense of implementation. What's the timescales? When are you looking to introduce this, and over what period?
Good question, thank you. So subject to an approval from executive, we can, and I think Javeria touched on this earlier when she presented, was in terms of we can, it's experimental can happen quite quickly. So we can start as soon as we get the approval to go, we can implement an experimental quite quickly, because the consultation process for an experimental is the period it's being implemented, which is 18 months. So we're going to trial this for 18 months. However, as we have to implement the works, new signs have to go up, new posts have to go up, we're going to have to paint the lines on the ground. So that requires certain traffic management in terms of road closures and things like that. That requires statutory consultation and press release periods. And therefore, we should be able to, subject to approval, be able to implement 8 weeks from approval. So if we get approval from the 3rd of August, we could be looking from the 5th of October. And we're anticipating the actual work to last 3 weeks. So in terms of putting up signs, painting lines, things like that, we're expecting that to last 3 weeks. And then it's an 18-month trial period from that point.
So let me get that. So it could be in as soon as October, is what you're saying. And what about the parking? I know we're talking about Hazelbury car park. Would that be online by October as well?
Yeah, let me pick that up, Chair. All of the agreements are in place with the football club. In fact, we're just waiting on the keys. So that will be imminent, possibly next week or the week after.
Thank you.
Thank you. Jill?
Thank you, Chair. This obviously is a report about trialling the red route. But what I am concerned with is about your data, particularly around disabled and loading bays. I object to being, as a disabled person, being lumped in as a loading bay. And the reason being is I think the data could have been a bit more robust, the questions could have been better, and the answers could have been better. And I'm just wondering what you think about that and how you respond. Thank you.
Appreciate your concerns you raised, and happy to have a further discussion about that. A lot of work did go into preparing the questions and to make sure we get the data that's relevant to us to help support what we're doing. If there's something specific you would like to discuss with us, we can take that offline later. But we did our best to present this and it went through a quality check to make sure we're asking the questions that we need to.
Yeah, I agree, and I would like to speak to you further. That would be useful, particularly when people are saying there'll be increased congestion around parking bays and disabled bays, and we don't know whether or not really and truly they're thinking about, is it the disabled person or is it the problem with the actual loading and unloading? So I'll put to you again, do you not think that we could have had a more robust answers, perhaps if we'd even asked disabled people themselves when we were doing these questions?
Yes, thank you. So obviously it was open to everybody to respond to, and it allowed for comments. So what there are comments from certain, if people have a follow-up comment to make about how they answered, they could do, and they were allowed. They could do that. And we did take back the feedback and the comments that we got in relation to that. I think in some of these questions there was a. So I think what you're picking up is that in the report. People didn't want additional loading bays and parking bays, and that come to a surprise to us. However, we sort of gathered when we were looking at the report, there was a lot of people just saying no to everything because they saw it as a red route option rather than looking at actually what we're proposing, and that is detailed in the report. That sort of analysis has been detailed in terms of how people responded and why they might have done that. But I do totally appreciate your comments.
Thank you. I'm not quite sure I've had an answer to the robustness of the data quite 100%, but would you be open to considering moving forward not treating disabled people in the same question as any other topic?
Absolutely, and I'd love to work with you on that. That's absolutely fine, and do apologise if we can get better at that. That's no problem at all.
Thank you, Amy.
Hello. Right, Kieran, you've semi-touched on this already, but my question was about displacement. Obviously, with Red Route, those cars might therefore park on some of those ancillary residential roads. Can residents there expect to see some increased enforcement from enforcement officers during the trial?
Absolutely, great question. And the answer is yes. So what the red rate enables us to do is camera enforce, which takes some of the resource pressure off the guys on the ground that are enforcing along Dunsborough Road, and that will enable them to be able to focus more in the residential areas. And we've been working alongside parking enforcement on this, and this is something they definitely intend to do, is to focus that resource on enforcing on the residential streets.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Steve.
Thank you, Chair. I didn't find any mention about the buses in any of the recommendations, or have I overlooked that? I'm not quite sure. And I know that came up as issues about the flow of buses, and I'm not sure. I can't remember whether there were bus stops along that stretch or not, and if they are, what provision is being? Are we going to create a bay for the buses to stop to allow passengers getting on and off? No mention of that. There was no mention, I believe, if I could ask again, about the possibility of asking Sainsbury's to increase the number, the timescale which people can park, because that would add to the parking that was available. I'm not quite sure what the time is at the moment. Is it 90 minutes that they have? But to see whether that could be increased, because if they have a large car park isn't used all the time, and that's part of an option. And should we not at this stage? And I know that Gerard has a different view on this, but should we not be looking forward to the time that the Luton Town Club moves to the town centre, and starting to think about where we could put a multi-storey car park at some point, which would really deal with the problems not just of the flow of traffic, but also of the problems for the residents, because they are crammed in, and there are a number of cars per family and running out of space. So we have to find a long-term solution, and it's rather remiss of us if we're not putting that into the equation now. We need to be a forward-thinking council, not just being reactive. And what I've seen here is reactive. Let's start thinking about some positivity going forward. So have we not started to think about that already, about the opportunities that we would have of maybe not just using the land where the football club currently is, not just for parking, maybe a recreation ground for the residents as well would be quite nice going forward in the future.
Thank you, Councillor Stevens. I think there's a bit both Gerald and I can come in on. I'll try and there was a lot there, so I'll try and capture a lot of what you said. If I missed something, please let me know. So the first was in relation to have we done anything about bus review and the rest of it. So the bus operators were a key stakeholder that we engaged with as part of the process, and we had meetings with them, and their input was interesting. So their view is what people don't realise, that when a bus stops, in Bury Park particularly, when they're sitting behind the bus, they don't see why the bus is sitting there, so they think they're stuck behind the bus stopping. Actually, what the bus operators input onto that was actually what people don't see is there's a car parked in front of them and they can't get around that, and that's what's caused. And we've got photographic evidence of things like that's happened. However, we're not naive to think if a bus stops, it doesn't cause congestion. We know it's going to cause a bit of congestion. And when we've spoken to the bus operators, they're open to the discussion to look at different places of relocating the bus stops. However, we want to be very careful and cautious about our approach on that. So so in terms of, you mentioned lay-bys as an option, that is something we have considered. The reason why we're not recommending to proceed with lay-bys is the history in Bury Park. There used to be lay-bys. Some of the issues that they got in Bury Park was the buses couldn't pull in because people were parked in there, or they couldn't pull out because people wouldn't let them out. And the DFT have given us strong guidance and legislation on how we or where we locate bus stops, and lay-bys in particular, and the guidance and the instruction that they give us is that we shouldn't be implementing bus lay-bys on roads under 30 mile per hour, because the whole priority is that we prioritise public transport. They should take centre space on the carriageway. If you create a lay-by, those issues that I mentioned that we had experience of in Bury Park will happen again, particularly with pulling out of the bus lay-bys to join the traffic. Buses can't do it. So we don't want to hinder public transport. We want to keep improving public transport, and it's a key point of getting people to Bury Park is public transport, and we want to do that. However, in relation to where we locate the bus stops, there are things we are considering and looking at, but again, we want to see how the trial red route goes to see, will we see the journey time improvements that we expect? If we don't, we'll try and pinpoint why are we not. And if it comes down to because of where the bus stops are looking at, we'll then look at relocating them. Now, there is a thought that we could put a bus stop either end of Bury Park rather than right in the centre of Bury Park. And that's something we can explore. However, we want to be cautious with that because there's residents that live just off the road of Dunstable Road they're vulnerable and they rely on the bus services. And if you stick it down the other end of each side of Bury Park, they may not be able to get to it. And obviously it's a key route to the hospital and things like that. So we want to be very cautious about that. However, through the experimental process, if we find that buses are impacting on the journey times quite considerably, that we don't think that's acceptable, we will look at how we can relocate that, and we can look at temporarily relocating bus stops, and then we can monitor the impact that might be having on certain people and review that as it progresses. So, thank you.
Slightly remiss of us not to have put anything in the kind of recommendations, or to totally ignore in what we're putting out, since we've actually, quite rightly, you've said you've had discussions with the bus companies. I don't see anything in the report that really... Sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off there. So just to clarify, in the main report, the consultation report, that information's in that consultation report in terms of the dialogue. But it's not in any of the recommendations.
No, because it's a summary, so we didn't include absolutely everything. But point taken. I understand it might have been a good point to bring that out.
Could I, Chair, just to pick up on the point around Luton Town Football Club, and again, as many people in this room will know, there are lots of different views and opinions about what should go onto that site whenever the football club moves. But it should be subject to wider regeneration master planning with engagement, looking with the full community, both businesses and the residents that live there. And we're probably still a number of years off when that happens, but we will soon have to start planning for that.
So I'm just to clarify, under point 12 and 1, 2, 3, 4, the fourth paragraph under point 12, undertake further traffic surveys to identify if bus stop design layout is contributing congestion, and that was what was meant by that.
Okay, Councillor, is that it? Thank you. We now move over. I've got a question mark on Councillor Dries. Did you have a question?
Yes, thank you, Chair. Kieran, thank you for the report. My question is, how much did this concentration cost?
That is a good question. I can find out during this process and confirm with you.
Ballpark figures, okay.
I'm not gonna be drawn on that. I'll let you know after. I'll find out and then confirm that with you.
So where I was trying to head to, Kieran, was that in 2018, 2019, there was a plan in Bury Park to put the bus stops back inside and have some more additional parking spaces in and around AA Carpets, that area where bottleneck, which is a big bottleneck in Bury Park. Everybody who uses Bury Park knows that area is a bottleneck. That cost was around £250,000 to do that work. And the money came from there, but obviously it didn't happen. So the question is, obviously, that would be a far simpler thing to do before going on a very expensive exercise to say, where we are got to today.
Yeah, thank you. So just to touch on that, I wasn't involved with that project, but obviously being aware of this project, I've made myself familiar with that project. When that went out to consultation, it was a straight down the middle. There was 50% against it, 50% for it. Obviously, I've mentioned the latest guidance, which wasn't available. This is new guidance from the DFT and legislation from the DFT upon bus laybys. That wasn't available at the time. And my understanding was when that consultation went forward, that was literally just before COVID. COVID happened, budgets changed, things went on, and we re-engaged with the community using those as a basis. So we did engage with the community on those plans, but the lay-bys, obviously, given the guidance that we had, we didn't go ahead.
So one of the things I wanted to sort of come back on quickly, Chair, the consultation was very loaded. The first question on the consultation was, do you want a red stop do you want a red route in Bury Park? And then it obviously was sort of very negative. So it was a very difficult consultation for people to understand.
I don't think that was a question. I'm assuming you're asking me a question on that, but that wasn't a question that we asked. The questions we asked were about, do you believe a red route will resolve the congestion issues? Do you believe a red route will impact on safety? So we can understand what people's thoughts. We know from the DFT and the guidance they give us, and the impact red routes do help congestion. We know that. We want to understand from people what's their views on it, and then that's why we're doing it as an experimental, because we understand there is some scepticism about whether a red route will actually do that. Well, this is why it's a trial, so we can demonstrate it and we can prove it. If it's not working, the data will show that.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Bassett.
Yeah, thank you. I think we all want the best for businesses and residents here. No one wants to destroy businesses, no one wants public to come under harm. So my question is just following up on the buses, like the bus laybys. We used to have them before. I've seen the kind of problems that buses cause in Bury Park. I know buses are incredibly important for the public, right? But it takes a while for people to get around them and for them to pull out. So can you just confirm the bus laybys, you will be looking at them as part of the, going forward? And secondly, there's the other issues that people had raised, both businesses and residents, was the Francis Street right turn into Dunstable Road, why that wasn't allowed, and if that could kind of help alleviate congestion. Thank you.
Yeah, so I heard the majority of that. I think the last question I might need to clarify, but just in terms of are we considering lay-bys, we have considered lay-bys as an option. The reason why we're not recommending that as a solution is because of the guidance from the DFT and the legislation from the DFT, which I've already said. However, we will review. We think it's a better option to review the location of those because they're in the middle of Berry Park. You put a lay-by in the middle of Berry Park, they pull in. They're not going to get out. The traffic will stop them pulling back out, and we want to make we want to prioritise buses on the network. That's what we're trying to do, is prioritise public transport. So we will review it, but we're not recommending lay-bys as being the option. I think there's other options we should consider first that would be more beneficial. In terms of the right turn into Francis Street, the question you're asking is, have we considered whether we take out that right turn into Francis Street? What's the question?
There's already a no right turn in place. And I've seen as well it causes issues around congestion, so I was just wondering if you could look at maybe reviewing that. The Francis Street right turn into Dunstable Road isn't allowed.
Yeah, so we have looked at that, and as you can appreciate, the reason why that's gone in, and just understanding the network, if people are coming into Berry Park and doing a right into Francis Street, there will be a small proportion that need to go into Francis Street directly, but a lot of them will be looking to cut through and bypass Telford Way and New Bedford Road and cut through down Cromwell Road and over to Biscot. Strategically on the network, we don't want to encourage people to do that. That's known as a rat run, is using residential roads. We want to keep people on the main road, so we want to keep people on Telford Way, New Bedford Road, and we want them to be using that. If you take out the no right turn from Dunstable Road into Francis Street, you will encourage that behaviour, which is going to create more congestion. So any right turn from a network point of view, I think you can appreciate, is going to cause bit more congestion because there's more conflict. You turn right, you've got to stop, you've got to wait for the opposing traffic to let you through. They've got to stop, they've got to let you through. That creates a conflict point and we don't want to encourage that. If we permit it, it will encourage more people to do it and will have the opposite effect of what we're trying to achieve. Also, just bearing in mind, strategically on the network, we have a responsibility for the overall strategic network, and that blocking back that's caused from that right turn will block back onto the call it the teardrop roundabout, but let's call it the birdcage roundabout. It'll block back and it'll block up Hatters Way and it'll block up Dunstable Road. We don't want to encourage that, so we wouldn't recommend removing that. It went in for a reason and we wouldn't recommend removing that.
Thank you. Rob?
My question has been answered, Chair. Thank you.
Tom?
Well, I think one of the things that's been going on with the red route, too many sides have been saying things that are completely wrong. My first question is to Councillor Javaria. How many monitoring tubes is in Berry Park for CO2 emissions? You mentioned it was done on health and everything else.
Could you just repeat the question? I didn't quite catch it.
How many monitoring tubes are there for CO2 emissions in the Berry Park area?
I can get that information for you and give you a response.
I wouldn't ask the question unless I knew the answer. You know that, Chair. The three, has any one of those three ever failed the 40 microbes what the European Union asked for?
Sorry, what was the question?
Has any one of the monitoring tubes of the three what in Berry Park ever failed the 40 microbes what the European Union says is a safe level?
I can find that information for you and let you know.
The answer is no, none have. All right. My next one would be about the buses. Yeah, go on. No, there's four now. There's four, not three. There's four now, and none of them ever failed. My next one is about the bus. Surely we're getting some of this back to front. I spent today just looking at Berry Park and where some of the problems come from. And one of your main problems, if we can start from the Beach Hill side, if I'm be allowed to, Chair, is why can't we put restrictions on deliveries to the Tesco's at the very top of Beach Hill, which completely blocks the road when they're having delivery and stuff on the other side. So first of all, you take care of that part of the congestion. You come down the hill at Berry Park, why can't we move that bus stop, what's at the bottom of Beach Hill, what stops everything behind it, every single thing behind it, round the corner now onto Birch Link? Why does the report say, let's wait till afterwards and see what congestion? And you keep saying no, but everyone round there can't think of a reason why. And then you start going through. The funniest thing I found today, just sitting there watching, we talk about Leagrave High Street. The council's put that cycleway a couple of years ago all the way up Leagrave Road. And there's 72 cars parked on there today. I actually walked up there with my own dog to count them all. But you know, we've also got parking meters where we put a cycleway in. So we're actually taking money off people for breaking the law on there. You know, it's gone stupid. But let's carry on with buses. Both bus stops in Berry Park, the one was on the left-hand side coming through towards town centre, you'd have to buy about 6 foot of the private land behind it, but there is no reason at all why a bus lay-by couldn't be put in there. You take that bus off the road and you're allowing the traffic to move through Berry Park. The last thing you want is any bus problems down there, because all shopkeepers and a lot of the old people what haven't got a car come down on the bus, they rely on that public transport to get to Berry Park to do their shopping. And all you've got to do is sit at the bus stops and see them. The one coming back, just moving the bus stop up in front of near enough where the community centre is, would give you enough room to put a lay-by there. Again, you'd be allowing the free flow of traffic through if you could get that bus off the road. The report says we'll look at buses afterwards. My view is we should be looking at buses now.
Tom, sorry, can I just interject that?
I'm just asking
you've gone
if
on to
it's
comments.
feasible.
It's right.
Would it be feasible?
That's Tom. It has to be a question.
Afterwards, Tom.
We'll give you the opportunity for a comment, but questions first, please.
Yeah, would it be feasible then, Chair, to... I'm not asking how you decide to do it. Would it be feasible to alter the bus stops now to allow the people that use the buses to carry on using Berry Park? Would it be feasible to put restrictions on the deliveries to Tesco's, so vehicles coming down into Berry Park wouldn't be blocked behind the vehicles? And how quick can that bus stop at the bottom of Beach Hill be moved around the corner onto Birchlink, unless you've got some magic engineering reason it can't be done?
I can come in there. You ready for the manic engineering reason? So for the bus stop, we did look at that bus stop, and that is the best place we can put it. The reason why we can't put it on Birchlink is that's a gyratory. We can't stick a bus stop on a gyratory. It would not be safe for a bus to be stuck on a stopping on a gyratory. It wouldn't pass the road safety audit. That won't be permitted. Because of the safety of pulling away from that bus stop on the middle of a gyratory with cars that are going to be coming round the gyratory, it wouldn't be safe. So we wouldn't put it on the gyratory. The only thing you could possibly think of is moving it further up Birch Hill, but then you're moving it away from the area, increasing walking time. So it is something considered. I appreciate the disruption it causes, and it is something we can continue to review if we can come up with a better idea for it. But it is something we have considered, and we haven't found a solution for it based on, the gyratory being the key point. The only other thing is you could remove the bus stop, but I don't think we want to do that because we want to promote public transport. In relation to lay-bys, I just reiterate my point about the DFT, and we're governed by the DFT in terms of where we put lay-bys, and these are under 30 mile per hour roads. We should not be putting lay-bys on under 30 mile per hour roads. The priority is to promote active travel, and they should take public transport, and they should take a predominant position on the carriageway to encourage it and promote it. In relation to the loading outside the Tesco's, that's something I'll take back to the highways team. It's outside the scope of the Berry Park scheme, but it's something I'll take back to the team.
Thank you. We'll leave the rest for the comments. Councillor Javid.
Thank you. Gerard, in here I don't see, and Kieran, so we visited Liga Road for the 2 car parking sites. Now, obviously, we identified 2 sites at that time. Maybe now I've seen a 3rd one. How come that's not in the report? Because we knew that Liga Road side of the shops, businesses don't have any car parking. Yes, Hazelbury, and also, can you clarify, on the Hazelbury Crescent, I thought it was 85, it's now gone to 120, but as portfolio holder, who instigated the lead on ensuring that we had the car park? Who instigated the discussions with the football club to say, we need this car park? And also, why is it not very clear in there that that car park will only be available, it won't be available when there's a home game? There's 3 questions, and I've got follow-up questions.
So a couple of, I'll just take those in reverse.
Take the car park.
On the car park itself. So if you look at the markings on the car park, there's actually, I think there's about 122 spaces.
Is it about or is it?
It is 122 spaces. They're all actually numbered the whole way around the car park. In relation to your point about other car parking, I'll take two car parking ones together. It wasn't part of this particular scheme, but as you know, we did look at the feasibility of potentially putting other car parks in Bury Park. And one of the things we have to balance in looking at that is the cost associated with it. So we haven't concluded the feasibility, and we will continue to look not just at car parks, but all the other things in the report over the monitoring of the 18 months to see what impact the trial red route and all the other measures at the same time. So it's not just the red route on its own, it's the other 8 things that go alongside it and the impact that has in its totality. But we will continue to investigate the feasibility of other car parks. But again, we need to think about that balance in terms of our wider ambitions around sustainable transport going forward.
Okay, and how many times did the red route, the Labour group policy, how many times did they go to the policy group to discuss with the Labour group about we would consult on the red route? How many times do you recall that it went? Because it wasn't a portfolio holder only decision; it was a group decision to do to look at to tackle the issues around Bury Park, the complaints we were getting around parking. Was that
Councillor Javid.
portfolio holder question?
Councillor Javid.
That's a question.
I have a point of order from the monitoring officer here that anything to do with policy groups remain confidential. So if your question is anything around the policy group itself and the content of what has been shared from the officers to the Labour group itself, then that may not fall within the remit of the question here. So you may want to rephrase that question and put it in a slightly different way.
Okay, so did we adequately consult with everybody, all the stakeholders in the Labour group? Not a policy now, take the policy in the group, but were they aware that this policy of to consult, it wasn't a portfolio holder only decision, it was a group decision?
All members across all parties were aware of the scheme, largely because the consultation exercise that Kieran outlined as well was also very widely publicised, and everybody had an opportunity to contribute to it.
Okay, and obviously, but why? So the car park, there's no mention that we're still going to look at the car park, even though we know there's no adequate in the Liga. There's a big impact on all the ones on Liga Road. Now, Liga Road doesn't have any car parking. It doesn't have any facilities for parking for anyone. What's the net effect during the day? Because it's all we're saying, yes, we're going to put a single yellow line after 7 or 10 o'clock. How are we going to manage? How are those shops going to manage during the day of anything? How are they supposed to manage?
Yeah, so we appreciate the issues around Leagrave Road and the restrictions down there. Look, we all know Leagrave Road. It's a very narrow road. And, you know, a single car parking, the footpaths are really narrow, so someone parks on the footpath, it blocks the footpath. Anybody parks in the roads are a bit narrow, so it's a challenge there, and we appreciate there's a lot of challenges there. We've tried our best to try and look at how we can provide for that and cater for that. One of the things we looked at is a single red line, which is what we're proposing in that area, that allows parking at certain times of the day, and that's between the restriction is between 10 a.m. and 7 p.m. So outside of those, you can park outside and unload and the rest of it. But we appreciate that during peak periods, that's a key point where traffic struggles to get through because of all the parking practices down there. Now, we know there are some parking, not substantial. I'm not claiming it's substantial, but you've got on Birchlink, you've got the parking spaces there, and then you've got the council car park, Beach Hill car park as well. So there is some parking provision down there, but as you can appreciate, we're limited in terms of the space available to us, and obviously we have made additional car parking, which is, you know, it is down the other end of Bury Park, and I appreciate that, but we're doing the best we can with what's available to us, And so we have considered everything, but this is the best that's available to us. If during, we had the consultation process, we enabled people to put forward ideas, and there was nothing substantial that we could progress with. Obviously, I met with yourself and Gerard at one of the locations down there. That didn't form part of this because it was running separately to this, and there has been a feasibility study or a feasibility study commission to start looking at that, but that's again not quite my area because I'm highways area. But appreciate the concerns, understand the challenges, and this is a compromise position that we're in where we're trying to cater for as much as possible.
So my last question, I'd like to know, is why are we not allowing the feasibility on Legal Road and the car parks to be in place? Because that's what the business's voice has always been very clear, that they don't have an issue with the red route because they understand the safety, the implications and the parking. They don't advocate, but surely we should have allowed the feasibility study to happen on the car parks, made the car park position and then implemented the red route, and that would have then. Why haven't we looked at that as a way of doing it? Because it looks like we're rushing this through, and the potential impact on the business is Bury Park is a very, very vibrant business sector that gets people from outside. Are we prepared to almost make Bury Park fail? And that's the question. Why are we not doing if we're doing the feasibility, why don't we wait until we conclude the feasibility, what it would cost, and then implement the red route? What's the rationale for not doing that piece of work?
The feasibility work will continue as part of the 18-month trial period, which we are going to review at 3, 6 and 12 months as we continue to go through that process. If there is that demand for additional car parking spaces, because again, we don't know what impact all of those 8 things that are in the report all happening together will have, including the 120 spaces at Hazelbury Crescent. But we will continue to look at the provision for car parking in line with the Council's Sustainability Transport Plan.
Okay, thank you. Just a few questions for myself. Over the last year, or whatever time frame, over the last year and a half, in a 12-month period, how effective was our parking enforcement? So in terms of how many parking charge notices were issued?
Sorry, Chair, you wouldn't just repeat that. How many parking
charge notices were issued over the last 12 months?
Chair, we'll have to come back to you specifically on Bury Park. I don't have those figures, but I can tell you that in the last 12 months, over 100,000 tickets were issued across the town. But we can get the specifics for Bury Park and bring those back.
Okay. A few months ago, I did receive a figure. I think it was about 11,000 tickets that were issued, and that would have covered 24 to 25, or possibly some parts of 26. However, I mean, just taking that into question, I mean, what kind of revenue would we have generated from that? Just a ballpark figure from that kind of amount of tickets being issued.
Chair, sorry, that depends on whether people pay within the grace period. So whether it's the full ticket price or the discounted cost. But again, we can have a look at that analysis and break it down for all of the tickets and bring that back.
Okay, thank you. So in terms of we talked about the DFT. Now, is that a compulsory requirement that we can't have lay-bys, or is it just a recommendation that DFT issues?
It's a strong recommendation, so it's within the local authority's gift to review that where appropriate, but we need to do that considering the guidance that they give us, and we have to have a strong reason why not to. And my argument to you as an officer that's implementing this legislation, you have to have a good reason why not to, and the reasons why they say don't do it is because you're not prioritising public transport. You're when they pull in, people don't let them out. Are we saying that's not going to happen? No. So my response to that as an officer, if I was going to recommend something like that, it wouldn't be in that position. I may, as an officer, decide to use in an area where we don't think that sort of situation is going to occur, and we can review that. But on that basis, we wouldn't have a strong reason why we're not following best practice and guidance from the DFT.
Thank you. Thank you for clarifying. Now, in terms of car parking, I have been made aware by my colleague, Councillor Franks, who obviously was part of the Development Management Committee at the time Sainsbury's was being built. It is our understanding that there was a proviso within the planning that Sainsbury's would open up their car park for 90 minutes, 24/7. As it stands currently, they do offer that during their operating hours, but not whilst they are closed. Is that something that we have reviewed or brought up with them?
So that's something that was raised to us some time ago, and we looked into that. There's no planning condition that says anything of that nature. And we did check with planning, and we looked through it all, and there was nothing of that nature that come up. However, I'd just like to bring to your attention, Sainsbury's car park is managed by a parking company known as Your Parking Space, and they do have the ability online to book parking there 24 hours a day for a longer period.
Okay. David, in your comments, if you can just reiterate that, please, in your comments. Okay, so moving on from there, what is the cost of implementation of the red route?
Good question. I'll just double check that again. I don't like to give figures that I don't have right in front of me. I believe the implementation for Signton Line was in the region of about 20,000, and all the closures, TM, and the rest of it.
Okay. What about the cameras that would be enforcing the red route, or are we putting any cameras in?
So cameras are already in place. We will need no additional cameras to enforce.
Okay, so just to clarify that you're thinking on the ballpark of about £20,000 to implement the red route?
For the installation, yes.
Okay, thank you. Would you say that, in terms of where we are, that enforcement, because we're implementing the red route within the current enforcement area of the double yellow lines, that it would be more cost effective to actually put parking attendants in there to actually monitor that for most of the day?
So I believe that was an option that had been considered, and is an option that could be considered subject to the decision that's made. However, no, I wouldn't consider it to be more cost effective, because you can imagine you've got people on the ground that will be taken away from other areas, whereas if you put the camera in, it's camera enforced, so less operatives needing to enforce. So I can't imagine that it'd be cost benefit to have the camera enforcement.
Sure, thank you. And just for my understanding, in terms of the camera, so if we're using the existing camera system, I take it it's not going to be automated. There will be someone physically sitting behind a screen issuing those tickets.
Yeah, so just clarifying. So no, I think the requirement by law with any of offence, it needs to be manually assessed by someone. I think that's the case for any offence that we're trying to enforce on. So no, it will be someone watching the camera, a manual enforcement.
Okay, thank you. It would be interesting to see how many, whether you need to increase your heads in the control room as opposed to what you currently have on the streets in terms of enforcement. It's just an interesting perspective to actually know sometime in the future. Can I just move on to my final question, which you'll be pleased about? In terms of the questions itself, from the report that you have issued, I do not see a question that directly, in a wholesome way, asks whether the red route is something that the respondent would actually agree to. It does ask individual items, but it doesn't ask in a wholesome way in terms of the diagram that you had provided in the consultation on whether someone had agreed with that full program of the red route.
Yes, I'll just come in there. The whole purpose of this consultation was to engage and consult with the community. It wasn't supposed to be a referendum or a voting mechanism. It was to say, look, we hear your concerns about the issues in Berry Park. Here's some proposals we're considering. What are your views on their proposals? It wasn't a referendum for voting. It was there to help us engage with the community, get their thoughts and feedback, so that can form part of what we proceed with or what we recommend to go forward with.
Okay, thank you very much. That comes to an end in terms of questions, and we now move over to comments. So I already have Councillor Aslam, Councillor Franks, Councillor Shaw, Councillor Ajisola, Councillor Javed, Councillor Chowdhury. Yep. Have I missed Steve? Okay. Councillor Tamina, Councillor Amy. Have I missed anyone else out? Abbas, couldn't leave you out, could we? Right, okay. We'll continue going from left to right. We got Councillor Javeria. Just to let you guys know, I haven't had dinner yet, so faster during the daytime, not the evening. Okay, Councillor Aslam.
Thank you very much, Chair. Just to conclude, when I was asking questions and the reason why I was asking questions, and I think Tom picked up on where I was going. But firstly, when we look at consultation, it's a very comprehensive paper, a lot of respondents. What really surprised me, a lot of people said they wanted red routes but did not comment why. So you talk about referendum, I think a lot of people took it as a referendum. And I think that some of those people don't even know what the issues and challenges are in Berry Park. Whereas a lot of other people who said they didn't want the red route, they went into depth in explaining why they didn't want the red route. So that was my takeaway from this. It's building on from what Councillor Amjad asked you question about the legislation, and you said it was a strong recommendation. I'm very surprised how we interpreting it compared to other areas like Southall, Leicester and everywhere else. They have similar problems, similar challenges, but their approach to those problems is very different to what you are proposing. And it seems like that it's something we're strongly driving when there is a strong opposition to this. I agree that we need infrastructure improvements, and there was a lot of TLC in our words talking about how important Berry Park is, how it's going to be linked into the visitor economy, so you're going to have more traffic, more people coming in to Berry Park, coming and shopping and so forth. But your solution to improvements is 20,000. Whereas we're spending 2 billion here, 4 billion there and elsewhere. If Berry Park was that important, you would have thought through this very, very carefully, and for a thriving area, you would support it to grow more, but not start closing shops. We know, we've seen in our town, in some of parts of our town where red routes have been implemented, it has had a negative impact on those businesses, and some of them have closed down or their business has reduced. Coming back to what Tom has said, if you really understood Berry Park, I travelled today, I trialled it in the morning, in the afternoon and in the evening. So as you're going up from petrol station, the first choke point is when you are trying to turn right, and I think Abbas Bassett covered this. If you're turning right, you're holding up traffic, or if you can't turn right, you're going up and you're queuing up, you're actually adding on to the traffic. You come onto the set of traffic lights beside the church, there's no box place. People turn and they try to beat the red signals, and they park right in the middle. And then there's buses. Buses park in the middle, you can't pass them, and the other buses coming the other way. And today I saw 2 lorries park on the other side. They're the major reasons why the traffic is not flowing. The third thing is, people don't give a damn about traffic moving through, they just cross a road. Those speed breakers are not zebra crossing points. so you're talking about safety. Actually, it's the pedestrians who are actually causing some of those issues, not corner parking. Corner parking is an issue, but it can be dealt with enforcement. If, like Councillor Amjad said, the amount of revenue that you're generating, you could have someone on each corner day and night and still will cover their wages. So for me, I say big no, because most of the people have clearly said why the red route is not an option. There's so many different alternatives, and you're hell-bent on putting a red route there, which is not acceptable. We need a complete redesign this proposal, infrastructure improvements. Some of what you're saying should be done first, like the bus stops and removing all the choke points, putting proper crossing points and moving bus stops in laybys. If others can do it, we can do it. So I do not support the red route at all, along with, I think, many others have told you in the report, and others have said it as well. Thank you.
Thank you. We'll keep going from left to right. Councillor Abbas.
Well, I was going last. Okay. Right, thank you. What I'm going to say is, obviously, I'm sure all of us here, councillors, businesses, everybody, residents, health and safety has got to be number one priority. That has to be the number one priority. Health and safety isn't just accidents. It's all about blue light services, being able to get through to places, get through to roads, get through to a fire, get through to an emergency. Anything can happen in Bury Park. We know some of the congestions that's there. So I think the red route is a possibility to improve that. But as somebody that's grown up living around Bury Park, I do remember a time when we had 2 lanes or 3 lanes. And then about 20 odd years ago, somebody had the brainwave to actually extend the pavements out. And I wonder who that was. And then reduce that down to 2 lanes and not have bus laybys. I think bus laybys are critical. And I think maybe going back to kind of 2 lanes or increasing the lanes might be a better option. Because I don't know what the middle bit does. You've got a middle bit of hump that's eating up a lot of place, and it is dangerous. And I don't know what that does. So Bury Park is in needed investment. It is needed development. It's been 20 odd years since it had any investment. And so it needs that. I think we need to provide car parking, which I'm glad you said it's going to be in place quickly. But I think we need to phase in the red route. I think it's got to be done in a phased manner. And I'm proposing, we talked about the nighttime economy in the town centre. Why can we not do something like that for Bury Park? Why can we not have a group? It is one of the most thriving places outside the town centre. It's on par with Southall, Green Street, Allen Rock, Stratford Street, Belgrave Road in Leicester. It's coming there. Our population's growing. Our car ownership is growing. I don't know if people know how many cars we have in the town. We've got about 80,000 households and 90,000 odd cars. And the projection over the next 5 years is car ownership is going up and up and up. So something has to be done. So a red route phased through with car parking, with better signage, I think is something that needs to be done. And I would advocate that we do need to support the businesses. It's thriving, and I think Bury Park will continue to thrive as the population grows, as its reputation grows. And if you think about all the problems we have in the town centre, we don't have them in Bury Park. It's quite, if you walk around in the evenings, there's restaurants there, people walking around, you don't see people sleeping, rough sleeping, anything like that. So there is positives in Bury Park. So we need to invest in it. So I would suggest that we do something like we've done with the town centre, maybe have a task force or something like that that could look at Bury Park, look at all of these options and look at about bringing investment in and improving the infrastructure. And we know the football club's going to be moving out as well. So again, Gerard, I think there's opportunities there as well, and a task force working with businesses, residents, looking at taking things forward, and that's what I would advocate. But I think we need to do something to protect health and safety. So a phased red route is what I would be supporting.
Councillor Franks.
Thank you. Before we get on to red routes, I must say, and I can't resist it, the sooner we get back to officers presenting reports, the better. The 15 or 20 minutes of party political broadcast that we had this evening is completely unhelpful. And my message to Angela and Eunice is, if you are seriously thinking that officers are going to be that executive members are going to be presenting reports at the finance scrutiny, please don't. Okay. There are concerns about Bury Park area. One of my chief concerns is that year by year, I have noticed there are fewer and fewer shops in Bury Park because more and more of them are converting to offices, to hot food takeaways. It used to be a very vibrant shopping centre, and the shops that are still trading there seem to be doing quite well, but there are fewer and fewer of them all the time, and that is a concern for me because I don't want Bury Park to cease to be a strong, vibrant and successful shopping centre. And yes, one of the ingredients that's vitally necessary for it to succeed as a shopping centre is more car parking. So there's no question about the need for that and the support that I personally would give to measures to increase parking. Looking at Sainsbury's, there is an advantage and a disadvantage in having been around a long time, as I have. And going with a very good memory, I well remember a planning committee meeting in Committee Room 2 when Sainsbury's or their agents were applying for permission to demolish the West Side shopping centre and build a Sainsbury's store instead. And I remember very clearly there being a suggestion during the debate that, in fact, there was an opportunity here for Sainsbury's to allow the car park to be used by other people coming to other facilities in Bury Park. It wasn't a very long debate, and the committee very quickly agreed that a condition of the planning consent should be that Sainsbury's make their car park available to the users of other facilities in Bury Park. I don't remember a time limit being set at the time. I do remember there being unanimous agreement that it should be a condition of the planning consent that the car park should be available. Now, whether that ended up as a condition on the planning consent or as a clause in what in those days was a Section 52 agreement, which would nowadays be a Section 106 agreement, I can't remember. But there was no doubt at all in my mind that the committee unanimously agreed that it should happen. Bus stop laybys. I do remember the bus stop laybys in Bury Park, and I do remember very clearly why they were abolished. They were abolished because they were almost never available to buses because they were clogged up with parked cars all the time. That's why they were done away with, and if you were planning to put them back, then please make sure that you actually do have a proper method of policing them to ensure they're not constantly clogged up with cars, which they were then. Now, I would like to make a formal proposal. At Eunice, I've only got it in note form at the moment, but I will type it up and email it to you in the morning. First, Overview and Scrutiny Board is concerned that year by year there are fewer shops in Bury Park, with more being converted into other uses like offices and hot food takeaways. Second, that OSB fully supports any sensible moves to increase parking in the area. Third, that it be recommended that Sainsbury's be encouraged to increase the time available in their car park for the users of other facilities in Bury Park. That executive be recommended not to introduce a red route system in Bury Park, but instead to introduce a far more robust enforcement of the existing regulations, including regulations over shops extending their trading area over pavements. I formally move that as a recommendation to the executive from OSB.
Just one comment on what David has talked about, the Sainsbury's parking. There is an issue, David. Unless you purchase something from the Sainsbury's, you're not allowed to park. You will get a ticket. So I think there needs to be a real thinking through if people book and will they get a ticket, even if they don't go into shop, to Sainsbury's to purchase them.
I park in Sainsbury's whenever I go to visit my doctor, and I have never had a ticket.
Okay. Can I, obviously, a recommendation has been put forward to the committee. Now, that means let's deal with the recommendation first, and that involves just the committee members itself who have voting rights. So can I have a seconder for the recommendations?
Seconded, Chair.
Thank you. Can I...
Just on a point of order, Councillor Franks has made a claim about the number of Bury Park shops shutting, and then you're taking a vote on it. I'd like to see the evidence that more shops have shut. And then,
Councillor, we don't need evidence for someone to move a recommendation. We're in the middle of a scrutiny process here. So Councillor Lee has seconded. Can I have hands for all those in favour of the recommendations made by Councillor Franks?
Point of order.
Read it again.
No.
If I just read out the names.
Yeah, recorded.
Chair.
Okay, that's fine. We will do a recorded vote.
Can we not discuss that recommendation? You should discuss that recommendation.
We can have the conversation.
Okay, I can open it up for questions or comments.
Discussion.
Okay. I can open it up for quick comments, but we will have to move on looking at the times.
Yeah, really support the recommendation of no red route, more allowance for parking. And I think the comment around shop closing, I think there needs to be a more research and support for economic growth in Bury Park, looking at how we can diversify the offer. I think that's what David is trying to say, is that just like the town centre, we don't just want the pound shops. In Bury Park, we want more diversity. So I think our economic generation team needs to work closely to link that in with the master plan of town centre and look and see how we can help and support diversify the offer.
Councillor, are you recommending an amendment to the recommendation?
Yes.
Which recommendation are you?
The thing about Bury Park, it needs to be linked with the master plan, and we need to look at how we can diversify the offer and support the business to flourish and grow more and be futuristic.
Councillor Franks, do you agree with that?
No, I'm sorry, I don't agree. And the reason I don't agree is the more diverse we make our recommendation to the executive, the weaker it becomes. I think we need to concentrate on the essential issues, and the essential issues are red route, parking, and the fear that too many shops in Bury Park are converting to offices and takeaways.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Abbas?
I would just like to ask Councillor Frank for his evidence base for where he's saying shops are closing in Bury Park, because my understanding as somebody that's lived in Bury, it's a thriving place. Last time I Googled it, there's about 235 businesses operating in Bury Park. Some of the shops are now being split, and actually 2 independent small traders are opening. So I would like to know where his evidence base is that Bury Park isn't thriving.
I have never said shops in Bury Park are closing. They are not closing. They are converting into offices and hot food takeaways.
That's as far as I'm concerned, that's businesses. If offices is what people want, markets follow what people want. Councillor Frank, that's what people want, then businesses are thriving. Bury Park's doing well, and I'm sure I don't agree with your recommendation, that your proposal you're putting forward.
Okay, does anyone have any amendments to the recommendation? I will only take things from members of the committee, please. Councillor Ajisola.
I don't have any recommendation for that. I want the recommendations thrown out because I don't agree with it. From the very first statements.
You will get your opportunity to vote on the recommendation once we get on there. Can I have...
Talking on the recommendation. Is that what
if you have amendments, then yes, I will take them. So if does anybody else have any recommendations for amendments to the conditions, to the recommendations that Councillor Franks has put forward? Sorry, I'm going to have to restrict it just to committee members because of the lack of time we've got a long agenda ahead of us. Okay, so no further amendments have come forward. We now take a vote on the recommendations. Can you do a recorded vote, please?
Yes, Chair. So those for or against, I'm going to start with Councillor Abbas. Against. Ajisola.
Against.
Bridgen.
For.
Franks.
For.
G. Fry.
Abstain.
Pardon? Abstain. Isles.
Against.
Aslam.
For.
Marshall. Nichols.
Against.
Stevens. Dave Taylor.
Against.
Amjid.
For.
So that's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. 1, 2, 3, 4. That's carried, Chair. Have I missed out someone? So that's 6 for the recommendation, as moved by David Franks.
Okay, that is the recommendations put forward by Councillor Franks accepted by a vote of 6 against 5. Okay, that's fine. We will continue with the comments. Does anyone have any further comments? I will bring you in on the comments now. We were just dealing with the recommendation. But let me go around, please, from left to right. Steve.
I'm just hoping that we don't overlook the other safety concerns. I think I'd mentioned before, I was travelling down. I parked in Sainsbury's car park and I walked down right to the other end of Bury Park to the dry cleaners. And what I came across as I was going down was parking right up to the edge of the curb, and that mothers with kids were walking out into the road. And I think one of the issues there is the fact that we need to do something about the general parking in front of them. Obviously, the businesses have a right to move their business into the forecourt and carry on their trading, but then on top of that, when the parking is taking place in front of that, it's causing a major, major hazard to pedestrians. And I think at some point, if that continues and no action is taken against that kind of parking, we are going to see some fatalities or definitely injuries coming up in the future. So I think we haven't really discussed that aspect of it. And I think in any of the recommendations, I haven't really seen much that's been discussed around that. But that is a hazard
that we need to take into account when we're looking at how we improve the safety in the area, because it has to be resolved. As I say, there will be. I saw at least 2 mums, with kids having to walk out because there's no pavement left. They were right up to the curb, and something has to be done about that.
Chair, the resolution we've just passed does call for more robust enforcement of the existing regulations.
Thank you. Councillor Anselm, very quickly.
Yeah, no, very quickly. I believe that if we have effective, robust enforcement, both for encroachment as well as corner parking, these issues can be addressed. And for me, safety is not just about that small stretch of the road. Every citizen living in that area needs to be safe. So if we just look at one aspect of that Dunstable Road, we shift that problem over, that puts other people in risk. So again, a really good, effective and robust enforcement. And we generate enough revenue to employ people to do that.
Thank you. Very swiftly moving on, please. I think next from the left-hand side is Amy.
Well, yeah, we can tackle some of those issues if we have the red route, because that means it'd be enforced by camera. Oh, I thought you said Amy. Yeah. Because that means that can be enforced by camera, because that would be illegal parking, and that would be footway parking. But yeah, clearly something needs to be done about the situation currently with congestion and with illegal parking. And obviously, the most important part of this is how do we make it safe for residents in the short term, and that's why I would support red route. There's going to be no impact in the parking that is available. There's going to be more parking available, but it is important that this is, as everyone says, part of a wider piece of work about how we improve the whole area. But yeah.
Thank you, Councillor Ajisola.
It's been a long day, isn't it? I think well done for the reports. I think I'll probably start from there. This is a job that's been started from the previous portfolio holder, and of course, it's come to this municipal year. It's come up with its own recommendations as well. I think it's high time we get some job done for the people of Berry Park. That place has been an eyesore for some time with this road network and stuff. The survey, the work done on the report itself, with about 2,500 surveys coming in, about 70 direct emails, so many consultations with business owners, with the residents, and with the recommendations, with the signage, better signage, with car parks being mentioned. I believe everything is encompassing in this report, and the recommendation being mentioned earlier, which has been passed now anyway, it's just being too invasive on the report. I want to say, I think it's high time we get onto the job, get to the executives, and hopefully this comes to play as soon as possible. Thank you.
Thank you. Next, I think we had Councillor Tamino.
Thank you. There's agreement in this chamber, safety is important. There's agreement in the community that safety is important. There's agreement with Berry Park Business Forum that safety is important. And all of us are agreed that congestion is an issue in that area. This is not bringing in any new restrictions. All the restrictions are already there. All we're doing is enforcing them. And I think certainly the Berry Park Business Forum said it's parking that they want us to look at. We've discussed 120 new parking spaces available from now, I understand. But importantly, Sainsbury's been discussed, and Councillor Stevens raised, I think, a really legitimate point, which was, can we extend those rights that we currently have for people to park there for free if they're shoppers of Berry Park, but to extend it possibly beyond the 1.5 hour period, and I think that should be looked at. But do people know how many spaces there are available in Sainsbury's car park? Because it's hardly ever filled. You know, what 10% gets used, there are 370 spaces there. And to walk from there to the other end of that road is quicker than driving your car. So I think we should encourage people to know that those spaces are available. We should encourage them to start using it. And We should go back to Sainsbury's and renegotiate that 1.5 hours to 2 hours. We have to look at parking, but I think that's an ongoing thing. Bottom line is, though, we have to do something. We have to do something because as it is now, it's untenable. And I think that this is a solution. We're going to monitor it along every stage, monthly, if needs be, to find out if there is any impact on the businesses, because we cannot allow the businesses to be affected. And I have to take issue with you, Councillor Franks. That is one of the most thriving streets in terms of commercial activity, in terms of business. In the whole of Luton, it has not been impacted. It's just growing and it's set to grow. So we want to facilitate that. We want to make sure that that happens. But we also have to put the community at the heart of this too. You know, there are tens of thousands of people live there, and they've told us relentlessly that there are issues. We've heard them, and that's why we're doing this. We're getting it done. Thank you.
Thank you. Just to clarify Councillor Franks' point, it was more around the fact that the types of shops were changing, not the fact that they were closing down or there's a reduction in activity. But just to clarify that before Councillor Franks himself comes in. We now move over. I think we had, where are we? Councillor Shaw.
I'm pleased with most of what Councillor Franks moved, but I believe we should have included what we can on buses, because down at Berry Park it's not just for people in cars, it's people what have to use public transport to come down there, and I don't believe that we can't do something about it. Now, this is what I think is going to happen with this whole report now. It'll go to the executive on August the 3rd, and if Angela can tell me if I got this right, on August the 3rd, they'll probably ignore, if they decide to ignore the recommendations from here, that decision can then be called in to come back to this committee, and then this committee can recommend it goes to full council, I understand. Well, that gives us time to talk about buses and everything else like to see down there. But I will say, Berry Park businesses are not innocent in the problems what are caused down there. You know, you've got a certain shop, I can't say his name, where he has his his freezer van outside the shop all day in the lay-by, and when he gets one, he moves that and puts another one straight back in there. You just can't allow that kind of stuff to carry on. So I'm pleased about the enforcement stuff what was put in the recommendation. I do wish there would have more. I will hope to see more about public transport in there. And I just found the stupidity of what we allow Tesco's to do at the top of Beach Hill when they're having their deliveries anytime. You go down Crickled High Street and Kilburn High Street where they go onto each other. It's like a mirror image of Berry Park. That council down there has managed to control it. They control the deliveries. You're not allowed deliveries after 10 o'clock. There's all kinds of stuff goes on, but we have decided not to use that. So it's not going to be starting in September, October, because by the time it's gone through the system, been called in, come back here, gone to a council meeting, it's going to be around October, November before it can even start. But hopefully by then we can make a recommendation, what can go off to full council, where we can agree, and the majority vote will win at full council.
Okay, Councillor Chowdhury.
Right, thank you. I won't go over what colleagues have already mentioned, but what I'd like to say is that we need to get the balance really right. We need to make sure that the red route, if it is implemented, it works for both the businesses, the residents, and people who go there to shop as well. One lady I met last week, she's physically disabled, and she said there aren't enough parking spaces available for her. So even if she parks on Hazelberry Crescent, and if she does her shopping down near Birch Link, she wouldn't literally be able to carry her shopping bags, because being Asians, we do bulk shopping. Because if she buys a bag of onions, etc., how's she meant to carry it all the way back again? So she's got to find other ways of doing her shopping, and that might mean not going into Berry Park. So we don't want to, just by making sure, just by rushing through the red route, we don't want to sort of damage the thriving economy that we have there. It needs to work for everyone. So the quick wins that you mentioned in your report, I don't see any problem why we can't do those now, even before the implementation of the red route. So, yeah, so that's just a comment.
Just a comment. Okay, thank you. Javed?
Thank you. So, as the previous portfolio holder and the person who was tasked by the Labour group to lead on the tackling and looking at issues, how we can address there, my position has always been very clear that we would create the car parks for the businesses. We would tackle the road parking through red route once the car parks are in place, because we understand the blue lights and everything else, and the residents understand it. The residents are in favour of the red route, provided there's car parking. The businesses understand the safety concern, and provided there's car park, they have no problem with it. So I don't know where the whole message is getting spun. But when we've got two stakeholders that were happy with the red route, provided the car park then offers the residents to take away some, because some of at the moment they share it with the businesses. We could give them more resident parking then, but provided the parking is available for the businesses. So I don't know, and I'm actually perplexed by the comments from the Labour group people here, because all they had to say was, if they don't agree with it, throw out, and no one person can make a decision. It was a Labour group decision, and today to sit here and actually have the barefaced cheek to say, you've had 2 months, the portfolio holder could have thrown out. If you still don't agree with it, throw it out next week, but do not keep bringing the previous portfolio holder. I led on it on behalf of the group, and today to have you sit here and say, it was a previous portfolio holder who was doing this. No, it wasn't. It was a group. And if you don't agree with it, why are we even here today? Throw it out on Monday and be done and finished with it, and take the recommendations, what I made when I was a Labour councillor. Now that tells you why, because of the toxic nature and the manipulative nature, why I'm an independent now, and sadly I can't vote today.
Councillor Rohana?
It's just a comment. You know that we have a lots of Let's Talk meeting, whether we are residents forum, whether we have a business forum, and everyone is have a same problem to be resolve the issue before. They don't have any problem with the red route. They have a just problem with the parking issue to be resolved before this implemented. Whether it's a trial, whether it's long term. If it's done, that's fine. If we can resolve these issues, you know that in details we have it. It's not only a parking, it's including with the parking, loading bay, and when you bring the plan. We have issue address so many things which we are discussed today, same things. But the thing is that when the red route is coming, that was decided they will be implemented. But we haven't seen that any progress. If we should have to be being a balance between the businesses and the residents, if it's done, no one have an issue. Can we do it before the red route trial?
Okay, thank you. I think we're just going to wrap it up and go over. Do we have? Yes, you can make a comment.
Thank you. Very simple comment. I was in Bury Park very recently, parked in Sainsbury's car park, did get a parking ticket, and going down the road in my electric wheelchair, I had to go past 2 parked cars on the pavements, one of which was loading and unloading into their business. So I think we do have a problem, particularly with enforcement, and that's something that needs to be taken into consideration.
Okay, thank you. We now move over to the recommendations, which after...
Sorry, Chair, I think I did put my hand up.
Oh, did you? Apologies.
I'll probably be fair to say.
Okay. Yeah, that's fine.
Thank you very much, Chair. Obviously, listen to all the feedback and the comments, and I think one of the key recurring themes is to do with the buses, so that is something that I can assure you that we are going to take away and have a look at as well. And suffice to say that, Bury Park is a commercial hub. I've taken the points around, I think we all have taken the points around the need for investment and the area, it needs to grow, infrastructure needs to improve, and that's something that obviously, like I said, we'll look away with that. But I think for us, the key point here is it's about improving the traffic congestion. I think that's what it is. But like I said, given the recurring theme has been around buses, that is something that we are going to take away a look at that. And then finally, I think he's not here, but I just want to thank Councillor Shaw for answering my questions for me. For me, it's also all about ensuring that I give him the correct information and I give him the incorrect one. So grateful to him. He's here now, but thank you.
On a procedural note, Chair, we don't need to go back to the recommendation. The OSB has already decided what its resolution to executive will be.
That's right. Sorry, bear with me for 1 second. Bear with me for 1 second. It's getting very complex. So we have voted on a recommendation to put into the main recommendation. So we have changed the recommendations. That's what that vote was for.
What I moved, Chair, was OSB's resolution to executive in replacement for the recommendation in the report that we have seen before us.
You can ask if we agree to note.
Okay, which is pretty much what was about to happen anyway. Yeah. So we now pass the recommendations based on what Councillor Franks has put forward.
We already passed it, Chair. It was voted upon and it was passed. And that is the view of OSB to be referred to executive.
We need to move on, Chair. Okay, I think we... Yes. Right. Okay. Okay, that's fine. Based on the recommendations, I need to tidy this up in my own head now as well. So based on the recommendations, we have changed the recommendations based on what Councillor Franks has said, and which has been voted on a majority of 1, and therefore that concludes the business of agenda item 8. We now move over to agenda item 9, which is the draft food safety, food standards and feed law. If anyone needs a couple of minutes, come for break. So we'll have a break and then we'll reconvene. Okay, can I have the committee members back in their seats, please? All the committee members back in their seats. It looks like we have lost the crowd, so it should be easy sailing from here onwards. Right, okay. Agenda item 9, draft food safety, food standards and feed law services. Over to you guys. Oh, are we? Okay. There you go.
Okay, so there's a statutory requirement for the Council to prepare an annual food safety, food standards and feed service plan. So this service plan sets out our work for 2026 to 27 and outlines the work that was delivered by the environmental health team last year. The service had 6 officers, however, we've now got 8 officers, which is good news. And Luton has 2,000 registered food premises and 22 approved food manufacturing and storage establishments. And our service protects public health by ensuring food and feed businesses operate safely, and they investigate complaints, outbreaks, they undertake inspections, they enforce legislation, and they respond to food safety incidents. So food premises are risk rated for food standards and food hygiene compliance, and Luton continues to receive new food registrations. Around 400 were received last year. So over the last year, the food standards delivery model has been implemented by the service, and it provides official food standard controls. It modernises the way we work and uses intelligence-led regulation for a risk-based assessment approach. Over the next 12 months, the changes to the food hygiene programme will be implemented, which allows for flexibility and prioritisation of interventions. There are inspection backlogs, but with the recruitment of the 2 new officers, that will be brought down steadily. And finally, just to say, it is a very active part of our service, and we've had 8 emergency closures in the last year, 11 improvement notices, 2 successful convictions last year, and we carry on supporting a very important part of our community to deliver food safety. Thank you.
Thank you. Questions? Comments? Oh, you bring me to it. I thought I would have sailed through this one. Right, got another question. Right, let's take both of them.
The first thing is I don't understand why the recommendation is to note the report. Is it the objective of the scrutiny is to add our views on things, and if necessary to make a recommendation? But anyway, let me ask my first
We have
question.
demonstrated in the last one that we can put recommendations in. That's fine.
Anyway, the first question I have is on page 125, number 4. Could the officers please tell me what the backlog is now, and how many inspections are carried out per officer per day?
So in terms of the backlog, we've got backlogs in 2 areas. We've got backlogs in the lowest risk food hygiene inspections, so they're known as category E, they're our lowest risk businesses. And currently, when this report was written, it said 477. That's now come down to 414.
Okay. My next point is that even with the 2 extra staff that you're getting, it strikes me that you will be unlikely to be able to handle going forward based even on that number with 2, because even with the 2 additional staff, with the growth that's going to come for food imports with the airport expansion, with the large number of businesses unrated for hygiene, with a large number of food standards in the businesses unrated, with the growing retail at the stage and the stadium, and growth in home businesses, I think that you will be under-resourced going forward.
So there's a number of things we're working on. We've obviously got the 2 new posts within the team that we're currently in the process of filling. We have made offers, so those officers will be starting within the next few months. In addition to that, we've got staff doing overtime, and we're looking for contractors to do some work on a short-term basis to try and speed up the, reducing the backlogs.
I would like to move, Chair, that the OSB accepts the planned activity for 2026-27 on page 149, but that we get a feedback in the way forward, progress that's been made in 6 months' time to the February OSB board.
Everyone happy with the recommendation? Okay, that's carried. Okay, any other questions or comments? Thank you. We now go to the vote on the full agenda item to note the report and with the additional recommendation that this report comes back in 6 months' time.
And it would be useful if it came back with actually methodology that we can actually, so that it came back more as not as general comments, which are kind of there at the moment, but they come back as objectives which are measurable. So if that comes back to the board in February, making these particular items objectives that are measurable, it would be very useful for us as a board.
Officers, are you clear on that?
Yes, Chair.
Are you happy with that recommendation?
Yes, Chair.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
That's fine. We've already taken a vote, but we will. I think we've taken the clarification point on there as well. Okay, thank you very much. That then concludes this agenda item. We move over to agenda item 10, which is the draft work programme. You're not part of the meeting. Okay, any questions, comments on the work programme? We were happy with it as it is. Thank you. That's moved.
Chair, sorry, through you, just to include those 2 items, one on the task and finish group and one on the food safety item that has just been taken. Thank you, Chair.
That's fine. Thank you. Jill?
I just wanted to know what the date would be for that report to come back that we talked about earlier.
Is it the 6 months?
So February, is it? Yeah, February. Because that's just an easy amendment on that. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. We move over to agenda item 11, which is the Health and Safety Service Plan.
Chair, that item is not for discussion, Chair.
It's not for discussion?
It's information only.
Right.
Just move
Okay.
to the next one. We need to approve the recommendation for that scrutiny. Task and finish.
Okay, that's fine. That's fine. Thank you very much. It's we're trying to wrap this up as quick as we can. We have a recommendation from the Scrutiny Annual Report, which very quickly just needs to be approved by everyone. So the recommendation is that the committee need to agree the recommendations. 1, agree the contents of the Scrutiny Annual Report 25-26 set out in the appendix attached to the report for submission to full council meeting thereafter on 22nd of September 2026. And secondly, to authorise the head of democracy and statutory scrutiny officer, in consultation with the chair of the overview and scrutiny board, to make any amendments deemed necessary before publication and submission to the full council. Are we all happy with that? Yeah. Okay, thank you. We now move over to the Local Government Act 1972 to exclude all members of the public from this meeting. And as this is, that includes everyone not part of the meeting.